And now it's time for Who's Views Reviews with JT and the Whotastic panel.
I'm doing a shooting hour. Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome back to Who's Views Reviews. We are here to talk about, well, the latest bit of atrocity I've seen, and I can't tell you. I have to listen. The War Games in Colour, and I'm going to give you this right now, everybody. I have to be very, very, very honest with you. I couldn't get through this utter crap. I was taking, guys, I had to take a leaf out of Crystal Meth's book and I had to start winding it forward because I was so bored.
But to make it any shorter, surely not.
Oh, my God. Literally, within 40 minutes of this thing, I was nearly crying because I just thought this makes no sense. Anyway, we're going to come to all this. I want to say a huge thank you straight away to Digby Strawbridge, guys, who's given us a super chat here saying exactly what I am saying through this. Please leave the classics alone. Well said, Digby. I've said it before, mainly after the Daleks in Colour. I'm going to be saying it now, after the War Games in Colour. Good grief. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you for being with us. Let us know. Have you watched this rubbish? Are you in for it or against it? As you can see, I'm with George and with Third Doctor Ian and with Emilio and I'm with Paul. All right, come on. I didn't like it. What about you lot? Let's get into this. Let's get this over.
This is a very short show, isn't it? Who wants to erupt first? Who wants to go first?
Where to start with it now?
All of us, but all the comments we made are directly related to the War Games in Colour, not the War Games. Can we make that absolutely plain?
Good point, George.
That's a good point. Yeah, we are reviewing the War Games in Colour as broadcast on BBC 4 on the 23rd of December 2024. That's the one I'm looking at. We will come and look at the War Games proper at some point in our future. But this is the oh God, I can't talk.
Well, I had whiplash watching this, I have to say. It was so fast and nonsensical. If I didn't know what was going on because I've seen the original, I'd be completely lost. It just loses all the narrative. It's completely it's like who thought they could get this down to 90 minutes and make sense of it? That was really stupid, honestly.
But not only that, there's no consistency through the editing in it. That you have the first 20 minutes that go at a relatively leisurely pace, as the TV series did, and builds up mystery and suspense and sets the stall out. It then outruns Usain Bolt for the next 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever with characters appearing and disappearing for no reason whatsoever. Characters suddenly have some sort of relationship with the Doctor or each other, which is never explained or established, or where you have characters that have had that establishment, they just disappear for no reason whatsoever. And then you get to the last 10 minutes where it slows down again and goes back to the pace of the original. And then you get that reimagining of the regeneration. And I just watched it and thought, I just thought, what is the point of this? Who is it appealing to? What is it for?
Well, this is one of the questions we're going to be asking, because this is supposed to be for this one down here, Emilio's generation and the one below him. So I'm really interested to see what he thought about this. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great to see you. We're getting some people commenting already. I actually thought that, guys, that the whole point of this was to colour it and get as quickly as possible to their brand new regeneration sequence. That's it, because I agree with what you're saying, George. I think one of the reasons I got very bored is because having seen the original version so many times, all the bits they were taking out were actually relevant to the bloody story.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't make any sense at all. Legion of James is saying to us, despite deciding I wouldn't watch the War Games in Colour, I did, and I wish I hadn't. What an atrocious mess of editing. And as for the insertion of law-wrecking Modern Who into it, I'm done giving them any more of my time. Pooh's Lost Eyes. The BBC are condoning the idea that the war chief is the master. What the hell was that about?
Mr. Meeker is not the master. I'm telling you that now. I'm telling you.
Well, Pooh's Lost Eyes is saying, no, not at all. This means it's canon. No, it doesn't. Yes, I'm sure there were books in the 90s, but this is the BBC trying to launch a multimedia empire, different circumstances. They're trying to launch something, but I think it all ends up in the toilet anyway, my friend.
Terence Dix already said on many occasions he's not the master. Okay,
yes.
Believe Terence. He said that. Okay,
Uncle Terence said it so many times. We got fed up of hearing it. Mark Greaves is saying, everybody be kind to JT. I think he's going to be traumatized by what they did to the war games. Traumatized? I've gone to sleep tonight. I tried to watch this thing first thing this morning, right? Firstly, I couldn't find the bloody thing on the iPlayer because I don't know how to use this. I had to text Paul and the others to say, where is it on the iPlayer? Right? They came back and said it's actually in Doctor Who. They've shoehorned it into the Doctor Who bit of season 6. Why? I thought it was going to be on its own little gritty thing to say, oh, look, avoid this if you want to. But no, there it is. I couldn't believe it. And then they've got all this nonsense through it. And then they've got all this music. And then you suddenly go, hang on a minute. I know these two themes, one for the new era, one from the Pertwee era. And you thought, oh, you're not going to do this. This is why you can't, I'm off. This is why you can't let fans do all this nonsense. Yeah. Why is it that fans have to, why do they have to connect everything together? Don't they realize the war chief is a separate character? That's why he's good. To make him the master means you're shrinking this alleged universe rather than expanding it. They're utter morons.
And that's what they've been doing, JT, is shrinking and shrinking the Doctor Who universe. Even if you think of what the kind of current series are doing around the pantheons and gods, you basically just there's no mystery left in the Doctor Who universe. You could even say with the regeneration sequence, trying to make it all the same to the New Who regeneration with the, I think we all appreciate the fact that the regenerations are different and actually we don't want it to look necessarily the same each time. And I think it just makes the Doctor Who universe incredibly small, and actually it's not helping it's not helping the kind of longevity of Doctor Who by doing it. So I was actually surprised how much they've inputted into, changed the original story. I think the colorization, let's start on a positive, I think that
was lovely.
Good.
Yeah, that's superb. Yes, definitely.
Yes. It was certainly a vast improvement on the colorization of the Daleks.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it wasn't as harsh.
Better.
I see there's some pink left over from Barbara's cardigan, I think, from somewhere. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I am going to be that guy. There are colour photographs from the war games in existence which clearly show that Patrick Troughton wore a white shirt.
Yeah.
And yet they gave him a Three Doctors blue shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, they insist it's blue, don't they? Amelia, let me just say that you've actually seen the original war.
I have,
Right, okay, just so we know.
I have seen the original one.
So
just to check your attention span, did you enjoy the 10 episodes of interest?
I did. As you say, I think the kind of whole atmosphere, apart from the first 15 or 20 minutes, they would know once that first 20 minutes gone, the whole atmosphere and what made the war game so great. It was just so fast paced. It would, I think most of us would have appreciated. Keep do the original. Don't touch anything, right? RTD, don't touch anything. Okay, don't get your grubby hands, your dirty hands on this, and try and input your own kind of fan dream. Phil Collinson the same. Just make it in color. Do the color well. That's it. That's all you had to do. Very, very simple. But they can't help themselves. Yeah. So I see this as more like a vanity personal project for them than it is for the old fans.
You might have a point there, because we're going to be coming up to that as well, because as part of this very show, we are going to be looking as well at the interview in the recent edition of Doctor Who magazine. That's all coming up for you here as well. I have to tell you, I'm on one. I am not impressed by this at all. I've been sitting on this all day, really looking forward to coming and meeting you all this afternoon to kick off.
I've been since the 23rd, JT.
Oh, well, yeah, well, that's it as well. I want to say thank you to Paul Thomas Ashworth for another super sticker. He knows they amuse me because I'm that sort of thing. And you've started to cheer me up, everybody in the chat. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining us. And Mark Jones is reminding us to say happy heavenly 170th birthday to the one and only, the first Doctor himself, Hartnell first, William Hartnell, who was born on the 8th of January, 1908. So yes, God bless him, and
God
thank
bless
you
him,
very
yes.
much to him as well. We're currently discussing, Mr. Hartnell, your successor's last story, which has been completely and utterly bastardized by the alleged people who are looking after Doctor Who today and who seem to be doing absolutely nothing but wanting to stick it into the grave. I just can't get over what this absolute nonsense was.
There was one particular thing that really annoyed me about this, and I mentioned it to Ian in a little chat we had earlier, was the fact that Jamie and Zoe are guests in their own show now.
They're hardly in it.
In the bloody thing.
I know. So what was going on here?
Yes.
Eddie is saying to us the War Games in Colour was a massacre.
It's remarkable because Emilio just said exactly what I said to myself when I watched it. But about at the halfway point, I said to myself, this is somebody's vanity project.
Yeah.
It's been edited with the same blunt, rusty kitchen scissors that we use for the Daleks in Colour. And they tried to paper over the cracks by taking sound bites from junked material or reusing sound bites from material that's been retained and put deeply intrusive, deeply inappropriate Marvel superhero incidental music over the top of it.
Yeah.
Not just that as well. They've got to plaster the cracks. They've got other bits of soundtrack or dialogue redubbed by other actors who weren't even born when this was done.
Yes.
You know, it's awful.
It just doesn't make any coherent sense at all. And now you are in the chat. Hello, welcome. And you like this, please tell us why. Because we are, of course, fans of the original 10-episode classic, big, bold story. It's an epic, and they call it an epic for a reason. And then you look at this thing, and the only thing that I could say is very good about it, like Emilio was saying there, is the colouring. I quite liked the colours. I thought, and as George was saying, I think it's a massive improvement on the Daleks in colour. They've really gone for this. Well done to them, but the rest of it was utter nonsense. Hello to Mordrin Brownbread. Nice to see you. 60% of the story removed. How can any story anywhere make sense with that amount chopped? Well, it didn't, did it?
No.
It didn't.
There was no way they could have done this in 90 minutes. Cutting it at all is sacrilege as far as I'm concerned. But 90 minutes, who thought that was conceivable to do? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
I found personally, having basically, I've never watched, this was the first second Doctor story I ever watched. That even in the original version, when you get to the end and he said goodbye to Zoe and Jamie, even though I've never seen any episode prior or got to know their characters that well, within that episode, the time you spend with them, you get a good sense of the character, the relationship they have with the Doctor. So when it comes to the end, you really feel when he's saying goodbye to them and watching them kind of, go on without their lives and kind of forgetting, not him, but forgetting pretty much all of their adventures. And this just because it cuts out so much, and as you say, they're not part of it. When you get to the end and they say goodbye, if you were a new viewer watching that on the 23rd of December and never seen the War Games, you wouldn't really care, would you? Because you've not really got to know those two characters.
Yeah.
But ditto for Patrick Troughton's final scenes as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the huge punch that they deliver in the original version is completely lost in this.
Oh, totally.
It's all geared towards tying it into the latest version of the series.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all it is. I mean, as I said, I was doing a crystal meth because I was so bored, and I thought, right, bloop, and I found the way to bloody move the thing on, and I was doing this, and each time I thought, hang on a minute, this has gone to this now, and before I know it, I'm in episode 10, and I just thought, what? It was just incoherent from what I saw about it, but it was also because it was dull. It was boring, and the fact that so much was edited out of those first 2 episodes as well. I just thought this isn't going to go anywhere. Domgo is saying to us, Paul, the colouring wasn't all that. It was far, far too saturated. And Paul's with us. Paul Schlufter is saying, I was walking in and out of the room while it was on, which I never do with Doctor Who. I'll always watch and give it a chance, but it didn't engage me at all. That's exactly what I felt as well. It was.
And there's so many good bits lost from this as well. I mean, Patrick Troughton in this story is on fire through the entire 10 episodes. He's brilliant. And there's so many massive chunks missing of him, which is criminal. It really is.
Yeah. Eddie's here saying, we all know the war chief is not the master. This is RTD2's cronies changing things to please themselves. It really, really is. We've got something about that from them in a minute. And also Woodhouse 122. The colour looked lovely, but the editing was horrendous and the new music was too intrusive. I had to switch the subtitles on to hear the dialogue drowned out. I mean, the music as well.
loud.
Well, there was no room for any drama because it was all drowned out by music. It was awful.
Well, they said it was this, you know, oh, I'm going to score this like an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, let's keep it in character with a late 1960s piece of British TV drama.
But that's not what they want, George.
No.
It's very obvious now between the dialects and colour and this, and God knows where they're going to next, you know. If there is a next time for them, God knows what they don't want that classic. I mean, there was one point where I just thought, oh, I'm sure they love this bit in the war games when a certain actor turns up and they don't have to do anything at all to nod to the latest woke ideological nonsense they've got going. And you know, I just thought, oh yeah, that was handy that he was in these episodes, and then he went off to do other lovely things, including EastEnders, wasn't it? Because some of the audience that they were intending this for might be in it.
Well, it's interesting. I know we're going to speak about the Doctor Who magazine article later in the programme, but the bit that got me was there's a bit in the article that Rudolph Walker talks about maybe family seeing him when he was younger, and he's hardly in the bloody thing, you know, as well. He's
couldn't bond.
Yeah.
You couldn't bond with these characters because the characters in the war games are actually quite well fleshed out, and they've all got some sort of history. The fact that they all come together at the end is part of the thing that makes it work.
Yeah,
you don't get any of that here. Peter Venkman Fansite is saying to us, I've heard something similar. In addition to the lull, destruction, and unnecessary editing, yet some of the new fans commenting on the master linking and colour, but not much deep discussion. That's because they don't know what this discussion is. And Stuart Busby's with us saying they shredded it into 1,000 shards and utterly destroyed the narration and the plot. I like the idea that the war chief is the master, stand in the corner, but he's not. They took a piss over the story's brilliance. Yeah, that whole thing, I just thought, oh, here we go. They had to go there, didn't they? You know what I mean?
But the thing is, the 10-part version, both Malcolm Hulke and Terence Dicks were skilled writers to know the only way they could sustain a story over 10 episodes was to have characters and make it character-driven. So you take the characters out of it, and you've got, as I said, you know, this frantic Looney Tunes run around, top and tailed by a setup and a wind down.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the new episodes on Doctor Who. They fly so far. There's so little something to it, and it basically that's what they've gone. They thought that, you know, the new generation are not even going to come. Maybe the millennial, maybe Gen Z's in this, but just that we're so dumb we can't follow a 10-episode character-based drama.
Yes.
And so basically it's just basically turning the classic story into as close as possible the current new version of Who, where it's just so quick that literally no time for quiet dialogue or character-driven beats. So it's just a classic version of RTD2, isn't it? Basically.
Talking of dumbing down, what got me as well is the constant establishing where they are. We're at the chateau. Here's some chateau footage we filmed earlier, and then we've got the Teletubby headquarters, and then shots of Gallifrey as well. And just be in the same space like 30 seconds ago, we have to remind you where you are. How stupid is this audience? I'm sorry, folks, but how stupid are they? Honestly.
Yeah, but not only that, Paul, that establishing shot of the war chief's base was the same shot used over and over and over. How many times did that biplane take off in the background?
Yeah. And it's a little red plane as well. I mean, I have to say, Milo, I love your point there, Milo, what you're making there. And I'm looking at what I'm looking at in this thing here, and I'm just thinking, Paul, you touched on this as well. See this supposed audience they're aiming the new Who and these these coloured re-edits of our beloved Doctor Who aiming at. These people doing this, they're so condescending because they must think that people of Emilio's generation and the generation below him are that stupid that this is enough to sustain their interest. And I just thought, why can't people see through that? They're so busy listening to the Crystal Meth Brigade and all this, and BC himself when he's edited, and all these stupid reports paid for by some sort of nonsensical organization that's just obviously taking the pee and taking a few £1,000s. they think, oh, hang on a minute, they don't have the attention spans. Oh, they're stupid. So let's give them something that looks nice but doesn't have any story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, wake up, people. If you're looking at this and you're of that, you are not that stupid. You know, you can go back and watch the original 1969 10-parter, 25-minute episodes over a few days if you want to, and go and look at what a brilliantly crafted, proper story by two writers, proper writers, is. Go and look at it, because this is not what you really want. It's the same with that Pyramids of Mars thing they did and the Daleks in colour. Rubbish, absolute rubbish.
I think I've sat quietly and enjoyed soaking up the outrage so far, and I am absolutely consumed with rage myself, and the sheer disrespect. Russell T Davies, Benjamin Knobrocket, and all the others, they would go into the Louvre and go to the Mona Lisa and paint a mustache on it and put their name on it as well, just because they think they would be able to do it better, because they have this overarching view that they are better than everybody else, that they are more talented, that the people that made this in the circumstances that they had to make it on a shoestring budget, they think they're better than them, and they're not. They're not even good enough to tie their shoes or polish them. But with regards to the Master, for example, my view on the Master is that's bollocks. He is not the Master at all. It shows the tiny, tiny, tiny size of their brain that they can't get around that. He is not the Master. This was written by Hulk and Dix, and Terrance Dicks then wrote the New Adventures novel, one of the first ones that came out, Exodus, which was part of that 4-part Time Worm story. Yeah. And the War Chief came back in that as a deformed figure, because his regeneration from being shot had failed. Now, in the background, they had to put that new series, Regeneration.
Yeah. Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
Feral cat.
And no one noticed in the story. What's he doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
They are feral cats who have to piss on everything they see so it smells of them, right? And they're trying to put their stink on the war games. But in that book, Terrance Dicks brought back the War Chief, and he was under the character name of Professor Kriegsleiter or something like that. And he was trying to do various bits and pieces with the Nazis, because it was very Nazi themed. Probably shouldn't have said that word. Sorry, JT. It was very Second World War, Third Reich themed. Yeah. And it was not the Master. And Terrance Dicks was one of the two people that created this character. And he says it's not the Master. The end. How far do we take it? Do we go back to the Mind Robber? Because the main baddie in that called himself the bloody Master, right? Yeah. So
he's not got a beard, though, is he? No, he's not.
Well, you know, but neither did John Sim. Neither did Silly Bint that became allegedly the Master after that. But then again, do we go, is Davros the Master? Because in episode 6 of Genesis of the Daleks, he says to the Daleks, I am the Master, not you. I. Is he the Master? Because he says he's the Master. So where does it stop? Where does it end? They can't help themselves.
And as far as K9's concerned, he's the Doctor's the Master as well.
But as I say, though, what frustrates me about this, Ian, is the fact that they are just bringing all this, making it smaller rather than expanding it. Because, you know, I mean, it's ridiculous. They didn't try to make, or will they try to make the Time Meddler the Master? Who knows? The War Chief is another brilliant creation, another character. You can actually imagine him around about the same age as the Doctor, with the Master, with the Rani, with the Time Meddler. Where you can imagine this group of misfits that obviously something in their generation of Time Lords upset them all enough to want to steal TARDISes and go out into the universe. I think that's a nice story that should never ever be spoken about. Do you know what I mean? Because something obviously got on their nerves.
the interplay between him and the Doctor is fantastic. When they first clap eyes on each other and he just screams, stop them. The look on his face, that realization is amazing. But then when he calls him into the room later, sorry, George, when he calls him into the room later, he's not staring at him, he's looking away. You may have changed your appearance, but I know who you are.
Yes, that's lovely.
Oh my God.
In the original version, That's a wonderful piece of foreshadowing.
Yes.
And it just becomes a throwaway line in this.
It becomes to them, these people that have put this version together, an easy way to go, oh, aren't we clever? No, you're not, because this discussion was being had in the 80s, the 70s, the 80s and the 90s. And the majority of the time, as far as I know from the circles I was in the late 80s and through the 90s, we would always say, it's very clearly not the master. Very clear. I mean, it was just ridiculous how they put, but that's all they've done, Joe, to go, aren't we clever? Look, there's little hints here to say, I know who you are, but they haven't got the imagination to say, no, the war chief is the war chief. I was so annoyed about this. I just thought, how lazy.
The thing that really ground my gears about this more than anything else actually wasn't the end product itself. It was my brain saying to me, I was watching it, whatever the budget was for this, why wasn't that money spent on restoring the colour for the Silurians and the Ambassadors of Death on the forthcoming box set?
True. That's very true.
Why waste it on this?
I mean, what this has come about as well is I'm sure they can actually label these coloured versions of our beloved show spin-offs, because they are additional to the show, aren't they?
Well, they're not canon, are they? Let's face it.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we've got people here. I mean, I don't know where this is going to come from at all, but we did have somebody saying there in the chat. Who was it? Bring on the arguments with the new fans about this being canon. I don't think there's going to be that many, because it's not. No. Really isn't. And Mark Greaves is saying to us here, it's almost like they want to take classic Who down with the new crap. I honestly believe that, and I don't understand why they would want to. And Bobby D75 saying to us, George, the biggest problem I had with it was the new music. It was too loud, drowning out dialogue.
Yeah.
But
and unnecessary music. The music in that story all the way through was purposefully bleak, because so much of it was set in the First World War, which was bloody bleak. So it set the tone, and they've completely missed that. I don't know whether Mark Ayres has got some ongoing embolism that's stopping him being able to compose proper.
I think he's got tinnitus. I'm sure he has. Yeah,
he must have. He's got.
It's very gritty. It's very gritty as a story, and it becomes again like Moten knew, very whimsical in nature. The music very whimsical, very loud. Just no atmosphere to it. But I do think, just to finish off, I do think that ultimately all of this kind of vanity project is ultimately down to them trying to legitimize the stuff that they're doing in the new era. Like for say adding Jodie Whittaker. Like again, it doesn't make any logical sense why the Doctor would, like when the Time Lords are saying, choose your appearance. Why would it show future regeneration? Logically, that doesn't make any sense. Number one. Number two, add Jodie Whittaker on there so that old fans can't say that she isn't the Doctor. She isn't the Doctor. They're definitely doing it to add into that. And then also there's the kind of, was it you're too? It doesn't say you're that
you're
one
fat.
But you can say that person to Guinea. So where did that's not very Do
you know what, Emilio? Yes. About 20 or 30 years ago, this was a cartoon in Doctor Who Monthly by Des Quinn and Dickie Howard, and they did this, and they did it brilliantly, and it was funny. And they came up with this back in the 80s, and it was just this little comic strip they did, which basically said something. There's the second Doctor. You can choose your bodies, and they had the Colin Baker Doctor as he's too fat, he's too young was Peter Davison. And there was and so on and so forth, so here's people obviously remembering that or choosing not to remember that, but basing it on that, thinking we are going to be so clever again, aren't we? And it doesn't work. It's just stupid.
Well, the wokeometer kicked in during the reimagining of the regeneration scene, because you just said, Emilio, yes, it was edited, and it was edited to show that it's okay to have certain isms. Because it's not okay to fat shame because that one was removed, but it's okay to thin shame.
Absolutely.
Quickly, JT, one big poll they made. Did they show? If I remember correctly, they showed Capaldi, right? But Capaldi, the Doctor
is too old.
You would presume would remember seeing that face. There's a whole thing about him, discovering why he chose that face. So even narratively, in the new Who sense, they
The thing is, though, with Capaldi, Capaldi and Whittaker aren't from the Doctor's regeneration cycle, are they? That ended with but why show their costumes as well? It was faces
and the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, it was absolutely
publicity photograph. There we are.
Yes.
It was ridiculous. Let's just say hello to Daniel here. Daniel Neighbour, nice to see you, Daniel. I thought that the colorization was actually really good, but it was butchered so badly it just wasn't coherent to anyone watching it for the first time. I mean, I pity anybody that's watched this version of the first time, to be honest. I really have, because it was just, it was an insult to the original episode.
It's more like to put you off watching it than actually watching it, I think, to be honest.
Yeah. I would like to think that people have looked at this and thought, oh, I better go and check what the original was like.
Yeah. That entire last episode,
and they'll still be watching it as well. So.
Yeah.
That entire last episode should have been left as is.
Yes.
Because when they dematerialized the warlord, he was there with two guards who were banging their guns on the force field, which was quite effective as they faded into nothing. Because there was a rescue attempt. They arrived in a Sidrat and killed one of the Time Lord scientists that was investigating the TARDIS.
Yeah.
But there was an escape attempt by the Dr. Jamie and Zoe, and that was all cut out. And it just made the ultimate capture and sending back of Jamie and Zoe more poignant. But they sacrificed stuff like that for endless, repeated, unnecessary shots of this silly little upturned sieve and views of Gallifrey from New Who, which
I hate all that.
Was totally unnecessary. We don't need it.
I mean, I think episode 10 of the War Games is one of the greatest standalone single episodes of Doctor Who ever.
I agree.
One of the scariest.
Yeah. If Doctor Who did end there, God, it would have gone out on a high on that episode.
Absolutely.
But just to jump back to the regeneration sequence, I think what would have made a very clever in-joke for anoraks of a certain age would have got it was when, if they were going to change the original illustrations on the screen, all the faces that rejected, they could have got the permissions and the clearance to do it. If they used images of actors who were in the running for the Doctor but never got it, like Ron Moody,
that would have been
Dale, or something like that. That would have been a very clever in-joke.
That is brilliant point there, actually. But you know what? They're obviously not clever enough to understand that.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even think about it. And when you look at the people that have produced this thing and edited this thing and put this thing together, are we surprised? No, we are not. We've still got lots to talk about of this awful nonsense that they've published called War Games in Colour. As you've seen, we have got, for the first time on this part of Who's Views Reviews, the wokeometer is here. It's going to be in this show.
And it's very keen to be started.
It's very keen. Uncle Sidney, put the lid back on the pot. Thank you very much. It'll be with us on here. And of course, later on, I'll be asking you all for your scores on the TARDIS stores as we get into this. Let's get into the chat and have a look at this. Julianne is with us saying, do we have the viewing figures for this? Just how many RTD Who fans watch this? Are they all flocking to classic Who now? This was just to crap on Who lore again. Yep, can't disagree with that. And Castellan Spandex, hello to you. Why was the War Games chosen for colorization? Who knows? Well, it's complete. It's a Troughton that's complete. It's got the TARDIS in it. The Gallifrey. I think it's all because of the regeneration. It's all because of that regeneration, because they can. It was never meant to be in there. It was never meant to be seen. It was the way it ended was all down to the production schedule. It makes sense, but they could put this thing because they'd seen this thing on YouTube. No disrespect to the gentleman that put that together, because it's lovely. We all loved it. I think his name's what's his name? The Confession Dial.
Confession Dial. Yeah.
All very, very good. A few years ago when we saw it. I reckon Bill Collins I know he's seen it and thought, oh, we can put that in there and make ourselves look clever. I think that's what it's about, Castellan Spandex.
I was going to say about the editing episodes. There's lots of stories that are missing episodes. You could do an edited version of the Web of Fear and miss out part 3 and find a way of working around that. But why would you want that anyway? It's like, why bother? Choose a story at 4 episodes if 10's too long. Keep it at 4 episodes, like 2 Minutes Cybermen, and do that in colour completely. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
I just wish if they were going to do these colour episodes, yes, just do them as they are. Colour it, because I'm going to say it again, they are missing out on a massive money-making audio. Because I certainly aren't going to buy it. I'm not buying this nonsense in any of its forms. Not at all. And yet, if they do that in colour, George, and unedited 10 episodes, 25-minute episodes in colour, I would spend £45-50 on the Steelbook for that and buy them all again.
And see, I must admit, no matter how good it is and how good technology has moved on, I'm not a fan of colouring black and white material. If it was originated in black and white, it should stay in black and white.
Of course it should. Yeah, I agree with you.
It doesn't really work,
does it?
In the end, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because the way it's shot particularly makes a difference to black and white filming and colour filming, and the way it's lit and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So it doesn't. You can't just paint it on, can you? That's the problem.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
But what you can do is from a
Yeah.
commercial point of view, you could say, look, here's your lovely Steelbook. Here's the original 10 episodes in black and white, and here's the colour version as well. That would be a nice set. And I think to have the alternative, I would spend £50 on something like that, but I'm not certainly going to do it for a 90-minute cut down nonsense like this. Stuart Busby, you're waiting patiently there. If this monstrosity brings in new fans to the original series, who then go and watch the full version, then that's great. And we will always have that version. That's the only possible good thing. What new fans? The fans that are watching it, Stuart, with total respect to you, and I don't mean to sound cheeky, but the only fans that are watching it are the only fans that are still around now watching Shooty's version. There's no new fans coming in. I mean, it was shown on BBC4 at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and then it's gone straight onto the iPlayer. The public are not looking for this. There are no kids looking for Doctor Who now, and they're not going to go out their way to watch this.
Shooty's lot probably are only fans as well. Let's be right.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Daniel Neighbours with us again. I don't understand why they're trying to make the War Chief the Master. They didn't do this with the Monk. And Craig Dunlop was colouring great, editing crap, inserts pointless. This message edited by RTD.
Just jumping back to the regeneration, ever since I first saw Spearhead from Space, I've always thought that first shot of Pertwee falling out of the TARDIS he was actually regenerating as he fell out of the TARDIS and fell face down.
Did you?
Yeah, my head has always said to me, that's the regeneration taking place there.
Yeah.
Well, it could be, but they could do this, and they did do it, and they put it in there, and they took up, how many minutes was this? 3-4 minutes of extra space that could have been used. I mean, there were so many wasted opportunities in here to tell the story.
I wish if they were going to do a regeneration, they could have done it in the same way as maybe 10th Planet or something, not the new version. How they may have done it at the time if they had the time to do it, or probably been cast in enough time to film one. But it just looks really naff and out of place with the golden energy and all that kind of nonsense, doesn't it?
Well, what is it with all this golden nonsense now? Why is everything having to fit into RTD's vision? I mean, we all know he's sat down and said, this is how Time Lords regenerate now. So they're all kissing his arse and following it. But no, in the old days, it was down to the director of the show to decide how the change was done. And they were all different for a reason. I can see them going back at some point and changing every single one of them, this golden glow nonsense, including Logopolis. I can see it now. And that's not going to work. But a third character, the third version of the Doctor's in that one. Domgo is saying to us, though, the regeneration was the only thing worth watching in it. When I finally got to that bit, and I watched, I've seen this. I've seen this bit. There was a new bit, I think, at the end where the TARDIS is heading towards Earth with the Auton spears.
Nesting globes, yeah.
I thought that's new, isn't it?
Yeah.
For fan art, it's done very well. Like if it was, as you say, if it's on YouTube, you can just watch it as a piece of fan art. I think it's good fun, for the person who made it, and they've obviously inserted it in. So, if you want to do that, RTD, by all means, go and create a YouTube channel of your own. You and Phil Collison, you and your little buddies, and you guys can do whatever fan art you want to do, but don't try it and don't do fan art in legitimate.
They've got one. It's called. They've got one already. It's called BBC4.
Yeah.
The other thing which made that whole sequence jar for me and made it look very obvious that it was tacked on was the sudden jump in the picture quality, going from 16mm telecine prints to full-on HD shot in to today's standards. The jarring jump in picture quality, it was so inconsistent. It instantly says this has changed somehow.
The same thing happened when they did all those establishing shots of the chateau in part 1.
Yeah,
they had all that. They filmed all these other sequences of outside the chateau because no one can remember where they are.
Yeah,
or work out where they are.
But I couldn't remember where I was, and I was jumping through the thing because I thought there's so much missing. At least in the original series, you got. I mean, look at all the things they took out, all the other zones, all the other characters, all the A to B to C to D to explain I mean, the whole point of the War Games, when I remember when I first saw the War Games on VHS back in the day, it came in 2 packs, everybody. You got 2 VHSs with it.
Yes.
I remember being so engaged with this story, because I'm thinking, wow, this is Troughton's last one. My God. And then getting into the story, which was, the target
and
book
it builds up,
justice,
doesn't it, to the crescendo in part 10. It's superb.
It's a proper story. I mean, the way they wrote it, it goes all the way through properly. It was absolutely fantastic, and it's so engaging. And then you see this nonsense, and they've obviously sat down, being the thickos they are, and they can't actually see there's a story there. And you have to go through all these bits to show the mystery, to show the threat, to show the enormity of why the Doctor has to call his own people in at the very end of the show.
My question is, have they watched War Games in its entirety before they decided to cut it? Or to do it blindfolded?
Probably.
Can you imagine David Troughton sitting down with his family to watch this on whatever night it was on, turning around and going, I'm in this one. Going, no, I'm not.
No, you're not.
I
want to say hello and welcome to Who's Views to Stella X. It's nice to see you. The butchery editing was terrible. The colorization was really rather splendid. Yeah, I think we're going to agree on that one. And Paul Schlufter is saying to us, the only good thing about this version of the War Games is that it inspired me to go back and watch the original, which I've always loved and will always be my go-to version. Same here. I can't wait to get it off the shelf here, go back and watch it and try and cleanse my soul. I also want to say hello to James Ross Thompson Mackay. What a great name. JRTM, nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. I'm glad I didn't watch it. Leave classic Doctor Who alone. I don't mind enhanced special effects on the DVDs, as you can choose to have them or not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Michael is saying to us, Michael Q, the Warlord's base is very, very Gallifreyan. I thought it was more Thunderbird 9.
I was thinking more Teletubbies myself, but there you are.
It was ridiculous.
Or Michael Benton's potty time as well.
Potty time.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
George, you were right with the that changing quality as you get to what was the beginning of Spearhead from Space.
Yes.
The problem is they tried to blend the TARDIS materialization thing, and they couldn't even get the sound blended.
Yes.
But when the TARDIS first appears in Spearhead, it's a model shot, and then it cuts to Pertwee coming out, and they couldn't even get that right. But I mean, JP, you said about regeneration and they're putting the golden effect on everything. How's that going to work when they get round to doing it to Androzani, where Davison's lying there saying it feels different this time? Are they going to redub him and say, "Oh, it feels a freaking
last time"?
What are they going to do? It's beyond embarrassing.
I just have this feeling they're going to try it, so it all looks good when they're at the proms, and it's all the same, and yet it's boring. We've had it now for nigh on 20 years. It's dull. It's dull. I can't be done with it all. But
Peter Davison's going to be re-engaged, and he's going to redub his last line, which will be "Stop playing with that dimmer switch."
The other thing that got me about this was exactly. I want to say hello to Sharda Knox. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. I want to. There's so many of you in the chat. Trying to keep up with you. Keep your comments coming. Thank you for joining this. Yeah, please subscribe to the channel. If you have already subscribed to the channel, please make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. That would be fabulous. And give us a thumbs up as well for this, our review of the War Games in colour. P.S. It's crap. It's a real case of the other thing that annoys me was exactly the same thing as the Daleks in colour in 2023, which I couldn't get through either because all the Benny Hill music and the vivid colour. Anyway, because the editing it so badly, you've got scenes with somebody talking from another scene overlaid. I find that so distracting. Am I the only one?
No, you're not. It's very distracting. There's so many distracting things, it's particularly going back to the music. See that bit in part 1 before the Doctor gets sent to the firing squad, and General Smythe is berating him for what's going on, blah blah blah, and underneath that there's some music. It sounds like someone's got a jigsaw and they're cutting a piece of wood next door. It's bloody awful. Did you remember that?
Yes. Sorry, George.
I was going to say, but not only, as you say, not only overlapping dialogue on the soundtrack onto another scene. All that's happening is that dialogue is describing the scene that's on screen.
Yeah.
What's the point? And then you've got intrusive music on top of that as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it just doesn't blend, does it? It really doesn't blend, and it's a real case of it's distracting because it takes you out of the stories. You just think, ow, ooh, ow, ooh, ow. And I think it's because this is Doctor Who that's meant for Doctor Who fans. We know the story. Doctor Who fans, proper Doctor Who fans, we know the bits you've taken out. We know that this isn't going to work. We know it's not going to work as a 90-minute because it's 10 episodes long. It's 4 days long, for crying out loud. You know, it's just silly. I'm so done with this nonsense. God knows what they're going to do next. I do want to take us at this point for even more discussion to the latest edition of Doctor Who magazine, who unsurprisingly love this.
Of course they do. Of course they do. It's a couple of extra issues to squeeze out, isn't it? I mean, they were dead.
And also because
they
if they said
a few years ago.
And also because if they said they didn't like it, the license would probably get revoked anyway. How many more years of this are we going to get? But let's look at this particular thing, because here it is here from Panini. Executive producer Phil Collinson had no hesitation when asked which classic story he wanted colorizing next after the success of the Daleks in color. Yet again, living fantasy goo la la land. We knew we wanted to do a Troughton story next, just to have a go at something different. But this one is so epic, and of course it's complete, which was a major factor. I was also really excited about regenerating Patrick into John Pertwee. It was exciting because the regeneration was missing from the original. It wasn't missing, it was there. And I really hope it becomes canon now. Not
over my dead body.
Chance. No. The old guard, we need to come together here and tell them to bugger off, because not a chance is this nonsense becoming canon. And those of you who are like Emilio, who are sensible.
Chameleon like chameleon.
Let's go back into this. We've got this here. Whenever they do those montages of all the regenerations, I want this to be in there, because I always felt it was like a missing bit of Doctor Who. That's what worries me. See what they're trying to do here.
Sorry.
Bugger off. I say.
That translates as because I like to have my ego stroked.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what we want to do, and you will obey, you will comply. No, stick to the original series. And when you're next at the Albert Hall, and if that's shoehorned in, my God, we've got to start complaining about it and say, no, that's not acceptable, because this isn't the proper Doctor Who. This is an alternative. Benjamin Cook, the editor on the project, who had the gargantuan task of cutting the war games down from 4 hours to 90 minutes, was also thrilled about the regeneration scene. I'm sure his nipples went very firm. Finally on TV, Patrick Troughton gets to regenerate. We've been talking about how to do it. Repurposing footage of Troughton and Pertwee, rotoscoping, VFX. I was about to begin the edit when a YouTuber called Jacob Booth, the Confession Dial, congratulations to him, uploaded a video called The Second Doctor Regenerate, in which he'd beaten us to it and done a fantastic job. RTD emailed me and Phil, we've got to work with this guy. So we reached out to Jake. I recut his video slightly, and Jake tweaks some of his VFX, but otherwise it's pretty much that YouTube version. That's the joy of a project like this, reaching out to brilliant, talented people and inviting them to come on board. The thing is, they actually have more talent than you lot.
Well, if he'd said no, they would have copyright struck him.
Probably.
It's very appropriate that the magazine that said Benjamin Cook, editor with a small e.
Yeah. I mean, that is one positive. Somebody can do something on YouTube, and I think it was the same with the Capaldi theme, right? I think somebody had, they'd seen somebody on YouTube that had basically done.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, if we're gonna, one positive is that you could be a real creative person putting some really good stuff out on YouTube, and it gets you some work at the end of the day. But just not in this place, please. But I like the fact that.
I mean, you're right, and I agree with you. But the fact that they've seen that. And the whole point of doing the war games was just so that they could show the regeneration, because they believed it was a missing part of the story, therefore showing that they were totally ignorant of why it wasn't there and why it works without it.
But why does this is the thing, mentality-wise, why do I have to see the physical change from one to the other? It still counts as a regeneration. You still know that Patrick Troughton regenerates into...
It just adds to the mystery of the whole thing, which is great. You
don't have to, but I think this has probably been open. The Pandora's box was open when the whole Night of the Doctor, when they had to show the McGann regeneration. No, I like the McGann. I actually quite like that.
I love it. Yeah,
but it opened the door for them to try and basically do that for this particular regeneration. But it just shows a lack of respect to the fact that actually I like the fact that there's a little bit of mystery to how the Doctor gets from where he is to coming out of the TARDIS. Like, you don't need to explain that. I can imagine, or whatever in my head, how the Time Lord did it or whatever. Just let that kind of imagination happen. It's just unnecessary. I think that's
it doesn't need to be shown because it's explained. They say to him at the end, "We're going to change your appearance. That's part of your sentence. Get on with it. Off you go." And then the next thing you know, he's appearing and stumbling out the TARDIS as John Pertwee's sentence has been delivered. There you go, my lord. We've got more from this article in Doctor Who magazine, this month's Doctor Who magazine. It goes on to say, Rich Tipple, the lead colorization artist on both the Daleks and the War Games in colour, explains why he thinks colorizing these 1960s Doctor Who stories is important. Doctor Who looked just fine in black and white, on TV. It was also pretty good as 625 lines on VHS, in standard definition on DVD, and in HD and on Blu-ray. But colour is a new, more vibrant way to watch these stories we love. It's an option for those who enjoy it. If this opens up the 60s era to people who might usually struggle to get into black and white material, then that's great. Here we go again. However, the job is not without its pressure. It's enormously difficult, says Rich. Even if you get everything technically right, someone can just subjectively dislike the colours you've chosen. It's a balancing act that blends the technical with the creative. It's not about just adding as much colour as possible because you can. It's about trying to add value. What does the colour add? How does it reflect the mood of the scene or the tone of the piece? These are important questions to ask, but when you get it right, something magical happens. A clip you've seen 100 times before suddenly feels brand new.
Can I just say, if somebody struggles to get into something because it's black and white, they've got bigger issues to deal with than having problems with material originated in black and white.
But this is all.
She's been encouraging people to embrace black and white, not reject it.
It's not that hard.
It's true, but this is all down to these blooming reports that these idiots have been reading over the last few years, and also listening to the likes of BC and Crystal Meth and their little cult to say, "Oh, we had to fast forward it forward. Oh, we can't watch that. Oh, we can't watch anything in black and white." It's believing this nonsense when actually you should be acting as adults and saying to the kids, "Get on with it." That's how it was made. But
that's like saying, yes, the 1933 King Kong is one of the greatest films ever made. It is one of the true tentpoles of cinema, but it's in black and white, so we'll have to put it into colour so people will watch it.
I know it's
like over Christmas, the Alistair Sim Christmas Carol film was on both channels, one in black and white, one in colour. Leave it alone; it's better in black and white, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So many good films and TV shows in black and white don't need to be touched.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I totally agree with it. It carries on in Doctor Who magazine that this colorizing any 1960s Doctor Who story is a mammoth undertaking, and the War Games was no exception. It's a long process, says Phil. The edit happens first because you don't want the colorization artist working on anything that's going to be cut out. There were six colorization artists on the War Games, and it can take a month to get just 5 or 6 minutes completed. Rich elaborates further. In total, we get about 10.5 months of actual colorization. Basically, I just finished work on the Daleks, put my wrist in an ice bath for a week, and then got to work again on this. Of course, I say work in the loosest possible sense. It is work, obviously, but when you wake up loving what you do and who you work with, it's hard to call that work. The level of detail the artists reach for on the War Games is incredible. Rich cites as an example the car that the Doctor commandeers on his way to Commandant Gordon's office. I tasked Scott Burdett, one of the colorization artists, with identifying the car, which he did. It's a 1914 Sunbeam. So we began researching the colours, and within a few clicks, I found the exact car they used in the production, which sold at auction in 2020. The auction listing came with all these colour photos that covered every angle. It was a real stroke of luck. I contacted the auction house to let the owner know his car was used in Doctor Who, and he was delighted. So was I, because now I knew exactly what colour everything needed to be. The project was not without its surprises for the team. Rich told us one of the biggest thrills for me was how well the stock footage and new VFX gel into this vintage material. Well, yeah.
That's questionable, isn't it?
Yeah. So
we did have somebody before Christmas in the chat who actually said that they were working. We
did. We had a lovely guest that came to talk to us. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's a real shame that clearly that in that instance, and I'm sure there's many instances, the people that actually did the colorization put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of love into it. And it's a shame that because of their bosses' egos, that's overshadowed what is, you know, in my opinion, great colorization that they, and the work that the people did behind the scene to, you know, was a project, I'm sure, for them that they put a lot of love into and care. So yeah, I think they don't realize it, but actually them, you know, meddling with the kind of I guess the history of the show and the regeneration and all of that, they've ultimately they've overshadowed all the hard work that those people put into it.
So isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing, George, that it's only now that Doctor Who's past is being ransacked as much as it is by the current production team. We had all those years where the production teams at the time just focused on the next series. This lot have to focus on actually destroying the past as well as their current stuff.
So the editing process was done first. So that took them up to the coffee break on the first morning. So did the colorization start after that?
It must have done. Stuart Busby, I like this. I just can't understand why everyone is being so negative. It looked incredible. It made the story easier to watch. The War Chief being the Master is great, and I love the regeneration. I'm joking, he says.
Thank God for that. I'm not joking about this next point, though. What annoys me about this particularly is why did they insist on putting a crap version of the theme over the titles?
Yeah.
What is wrong with the original theme or the 1969 theme? What's wrong with that?
The same thing as what's wrong with the original episodes.
Well, surely that can't be inaccessible to new fans as well.
It's probably too slow for the new fan base. That's why
it's got more atmosphere in the first few bars of that than in the whole 30 seconds. It's awful, isn't it?
I don't understand how these people work, but I want to say to BBC Studios, you've employed the wrong people to be the custodians of Doctor Who. Sack them. Get rid of them. They are not the big know-alls you seem to think they are. It's absolutely ridiculous. Paul Richards saying to us they cut out David Troughton's role, very sad, and the editing was atrocious. And Domgo is saying, my sister watched this and Joy to the World over Christmas. Oh, the poor woman, she must be in a dark room right now in the corner. She said at least she could understand Joy to the World. Well,
really?
I can understand that, though, because the War Games was...
Yeah. I love the fact that all these characters appear and disappear at random. There's a bit where I think when is it 5 or 6 or 7 round about there, the Doctor has the processing machine and he gets caught by General Smythe again. And there's a big chunk cut out where he goes back to be shot and General Smythe realizes he's got the processing machine. But then all of a sudden the Doctor's back in the room with the soldiers and General Smythe is in the room trying to contact the base. It's like, what happened there?
I mean, at one point, I was keeping a mental tally of the continuity errors that the editing.
You were you? You must have been exhausted.
Well, you know, I ran out of paper with the 5-bar gates.
Right. It's just ridiculous. What else we got here? Atom is with us. Hello, Atom. Nice to see you. Such a travesty. The robe colours of the council are all wrong. Black was the colour of the CIA, not blue. Yeah, but why would you colour something if it's going to be black anyway? So they had to add it as blue, didn't they, really, to the Time Lords?
Which is probably why Troughton's shirt was blue and not white.
Yeah, very probably.
There were a lot of colour. I mean, Richard Tipple there was just talking in that quote in that interview how much care and attention they lavished on getting the colours absolutely right. But the colour photographs that exist from the War Games, they've not followed those. And I'm not just talking about Troughton's shirt. There was a whole raft of things where if you dig out those photos, look at them compared to what was broadcast, the colours are different. Yeah.
Because it wasn't made to be a 90-minute special. It was made to be 10, 25 minutes. And that's how they planned the story. Well, I just find this whole thing totally disrespectful. Master Miles with us. Hello, Master Miles. Sorry, George. The Master soundtrack was awful. Which one? There were 2 versions I heard. The only good thing they made, the Fugitive Doctor doesn't come between the 2nd and 3rd Doctor because it was heavily rumoured she did. That would have been too far. Bringing her into it, whatever her name is. Go on then, George.
I was going to say, you can't bang on about how much care and attention has been spent on recreating accurate colours, where 5 minutes of research, and it's like you're demonstrably wrong. You haven't.
Yeah, well, it's true, isn't it? It is absolutely true. Thank you very much to Master Miles for your super chat. Who's saying this is a great review, gents, as always. It's a little bit more passionate on my part than it normally would be because I'm just so outraged by this. I took time out to go and watch this morning. And I just couldn't. And I thought, and I just thought to myself, hang on a minute, I'm the one now that's fast forwarding this thing when it's usually the other way around. And I'm being told that this is the better version for young people. I think they're just slagging young people off, to be quite honest. I think they are really looking down on people. Ridiculous. Bill, hello to Bill Lowry. 4-episode story with the start and end credits and recaps removed would be around 90 minutes. That's what they've tried to truncate it into.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for them.
No understanding of the story at all.
No want to understand of it.
Yeah.
And Anthony Green saying, I included that idea, George, in a review I've yet to publish of including actors who could have been the Doctor but weren't, like Ken Campbell and Paul Daniels.
I'm surprised they didn't put, like, you know, Phil Collison didn't put a picture of himself on it and RTD, and they could have just added themselves as the future Doctor.
There's still time in one of the other stories, I tell you. It's on the way. I'm telling you.
They would make themselves canon. Definitely. I think, JP, as well, apologies. I think prior we also had a super chat from Mark Greaves as well, £5.
Right, lovely. I'll get there in a second. Paul Schlufter is saying, are there really that many new fans? No, there is not. Stephen Braddock is saying, new fans? I know for a fact it's even losing new current fans who've given up. Now, that's actually one of the interesting things, isn't it, over the festive period? Both Joy to the World with its extremely low overnight and this, some of the diehard younger fans who we won't mention, because we wouldn't get on with them, basically, they've started to change their tune, haven't they? They've been really shocked about some of this stuff coming out. Very, very interesting. We're going to be talking about that on different shows, I'm sure, as we carry on. So Sydney Rough Diamond is with us saying, really loathe the War Chief being the master. It just makes Doctor Who become smaller in scope. Exactly what I was saying at the top of the show. But the War Chief is not the master, no matter what.
It's also disrespectful to Edward Brayshaw and Delgado, because they are two separate characters, you know?
Brilliant characters as well.
They done it to the Doctor, didn't they, with the Timeless Child, and now they're trying to do the same to the Master, to say that, you know, that let's say Delgado is not the first, or you know, whatever. I know it's never been said that Delgado, but I think in everyone's mind, like William Hartnell, you know, kind of
Delgado's the first. Yes,
exactly. So it's just the same trope, but they had to get their teeth into the Master as well. They weren't going to leave that.
It's because it's a fan thing. It's just total and utter fan wank, to be quite honest. It's nonsense. They have to make these things connect all the time. And you know what? It doesn't. You know, in the Doctor's world, it's massive. He's been out there. You know, it's all over the place. It doesn't connect. It doesn't meet a Silurian one day and then the same Silurian the next necessarily. It doesn't work like that. But the modern Who, it does. It has to all connect like a soap opera. John Cartwright is saying, I watched 10 minutes, stopped it, put my original black and white version in the player and watched it till I felt better. Original is best every time. Here, John. And we've also got Bedweir's with us. Hello, Bedweir. Yes, George, the opening of the CGI planet in HD cut into pretty low quality film from 1969 was laughable.
Yeah.
It was so jarring.
Well, you could tell it was, you know, even I, with my eyes, could see the difference. It was painful. And we've got here Richard Moore saying, I watched with two friends and they asked, why the guy in the kilt was in it?
Yeah. But there's so much of Jamie and Zoe cut out of it. Some lovely moments of, you know, when they're trying to get the resistance group together and Zoe's kind of in charge, but Jamie's pretending to be in charge. That is brilliant stuff. It's really, really good. Then lost all of that lovely character stuff. Such a shame.
Yeah, and it's their last story, and it's important for them because it's their last story, and you don't get that until the very end here. There's no build-up of drama for them. I can't. I'm just so disappointed in the whole thing. Thank you, Mark, for your super chat. Cook and Collinson need drop kicking in the knackers by Kevin Sinfield. Allegedly, yes.
You know what their argument will be, though, JT? Their argument to us will be sitting right here that you can choose. Well, it's true. You can choose not to watch the one in colour. You've got the original. But then I think the response I
you cannot choose not to buy it.
It is why do it in the first place? What's the point?
Now, didn't somebody in the last few months say something about touching grass? Isn't that just the same thing all over again?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm going to be coming to that. Ark in Space, nice to see you. The War Games is impossible to edit down to 90 minutes. There were scenes that didn't make sense. It's just cultural vandalism. I like that, and I'm going to agree with it. Cultural vandalism is exactly it. Thank you for joining us on Who's Views Reviews. We are looking at the War Games in colour. I'm going to carry on with the material that was in Doctor Who magazine, nearly said monthly, then Doctor Who magazine as well, including this from Benjamin Cook himself. Those 60s Doctor Who stories were made for colour. They weren't shot in black and white as a creative choice.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, colour had been in for a couple of years by then, hadn't it? Was
Yeah,
it 60?
Well, when the War Games were shot, the BBC they'd done a handful of drama programs in colour because they'd been pre-sold to the States, which was already largely broadcasting in colour. Most notably, the Peter Cushing version of Sherlock Holmes that the BBC did. The BBC shot that in colour before it went over to colour broadcasting itself. And they were doing test transmissions from mid-1969 onwards, around the time the War Games was made. But no, it was shot in black and white because black and white was the television industry standard at the time.
Yeah.
And how many people of the great British public had a colour telly?
Yeah.
I remember black and white television still being standard in around about 1977.
Well, when Spearhead from Space was broadcast in January 1970, there were less than 5,000 colour TV licenses issued in the UK, which meant there was less than 5,000 households in the UK with a colour TV.
And you had 2 licenses, didn't you?
Yeah, the proportion of the audience that would have seen it in colour in 1970 would have been absolutely tiny.
Yeah, of course they would have done. I mean, the colour license was more expensive than the black and white license, so everybody stayed in black and white.
Yeah, I remember reading at one time that apparently the number of households with colour TVs didn't overtake the number of households with black and white TVs in the UK until 1978.
That would be about right. That would honestly, because remember when we were kids as well, we had a rental one from Radio Rentals for the colour, right? As many people did in the 70s, because that's how you did it, because these things were expensive and they were British made, and we had them. And then we had the smaller black and white if we were lucky, which we were able to watch in our bedroom if we were sick. So we were always poorly and pulling a sickie so we could watch something on the but as the prices came down, it eventually led to where they are today, where we are today, where everybody's got 6, 7, 8, 9 in one bloody room, from what I can tell.
I mean, one of my vivid memories was my dad won a colour TV in his works Christmas raffle one year, and we were the only household I knew with a colour TV because of it. And I can vividly remember to this day my dad moaning like he wouldn't believe the difference between the cost of a colour TV license and a black and white TV license.
Yeah, I remember certain people saying they didn't like having the black and white television on because people thought, oh, you can't afford colour. But we couldn't afford. There was no way people could afford colour. Oh, it was terrible. Lots of you in the chat with us. Thank you so much. Stephen Braddock saying to us, we're not allowed to have an imagination anymore. There's no mystery anymore that they see ruining it all. Remember the title, you idiotic vandals. It's called Doctor Who. This is the thing. Why does everything in this day and age have to be explained now?
Yeah, I know. Give the audience some intelligence, for God's sake.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? I don't understand it. Master Miles, again, thank you for your super chat. Russell is going to change or edit all Classic Who if he gets the chance. That's why they've got to get rid of them. Sorry,
I think you're right, JT. I don't think he'll get the chance because when Who is cancelled, as we think it will be, when Who is cancelled, those production offices will be shut down. The relationship between Bad Wolf, and the BBC won't be there anymore because it was there for Doctor Who. And they will cease to have any creative control over it. And people like Collinson and everybody else will have to go out and find proper jobs. They won't have access to that material anymore. So it's only a matter of time. And if it takes a year to do it, then they can only potentially vandalize one more story. Yeah. And then they're done. But they're still.
And Eddie is saying to us here, please don't ever colorize the web of fear as it would ruin the atmosphere. Can you imagine?
I quite like the little montage of clips we got in the flashback scenes with the enemies, and then the bits in the TARDIS, with especially the Power of Daleks clip of Troughton sitting up. That was really nice, but very short.
I didn't like this. I didn't like this at all. No, because again, this was them just going through that whole thing now, what is traditional now, really, of flashbacks to the Doctor's previous life, the one that's just about to end. And even though the colouring shots is nice, it wasn't in the original story.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't feel the need back in '69 to say, oh, we must refer to Ben and Polly or Victoria or, you know, it wasn't there. But they've added it in because they can. And I just, it doesn't gel with
so
me
proper again, isn't it? That's the thing.
It is, and it's trying to push it to somewhere it didn't go. I don't understand this, why people have to rewrite all these things and why they have to rewrite history and all this. It was made for a reason at the time. Respect the production decisions that were made at the time, because they weren't bothered about the past. They weren't too bothered at that point whether or not they were going to continue. They had the sort of plans, but they hadn't been given the green light. They were professional. They would have moved on. It just winds me up, silly little things, knowing little what they think are clever little winks to fans, and yet they're winding us up. And Ian, I agree with your point there that when this gets cancelled, I'm sure it will do this year, and those relationships are put on hold and dispersed and everything like this, everything will revert back to BBC Studios. And that is when BBC Studios, my message to you again, is have a good long think about what you're doing with this, because you are missing out on money, because we're not buying this stuff, but we will if you do it properly.
I mean, to take upon Ian's point, and I agree with you that we might have to endure one more of these. There's also the business element of show, because I would be amazed if the War Games and the Daleks and Cover recoup their costs, let alone make a profit.
Well, I want to talk about that as well before we return to the article. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Keep your chats coming. I'll return to you in a minute. But have you heard, he says, nicking a line from one of his other shows? Yes, because I, before the show, went on to look at how this thing is performing in the Amazon charts. So this is live tonight, just before we came on. Get a load of this. It's available, as you are aware, on Steelbook at a recommended retail price of $29.99. Yes, $29.99. Okay. It's currently 26 in the DVD and Blu-ray chart, 2 in the Steelbook charts, 5 in thriller, and 6 in drama. Now that says to me there's a lot of people collecting the Steelbooks. However, in the Blu-ray chart, where it's selling at $19.99, it is currently 295 in the DVD and Blu-ray chart, 49 in thriller, 64 in sci-fi, 94 in action and adventure. The DVD is $14.99. It is 327 in the DVD and Blu-ray charts, 55 in the thriller charts, 68 science fiction, and 104 in action and adventure. And then JT thinks, how's season 7, the collection limited edition, doing? It's number 5 in the DVD and Blu-ray chart. It is number 1 in the drama chart. It is number 1 in the action and adventure chart. And it is now at number 2. It's gone down 1 this week in the science fiction chart. And how many weeks has that been on pre-order? 4, 5? Well done again to season 7. BBC Studios, look at the data.
Can also point out, to put it in perspective, remember the comparatively small number of physical media releases that get a steelbook release compared to the number that get a standard Blu-ray and DVD release. So it's therefore nowhere near as difficult to hit the top of the steelbook chart than it is the standard DVD and Blu-ray chart, because it's not a steeper hill to climb.
But
there's nowhere near the same amount of competition as there is on everything else.
But look how it falls there, George, as well. You're right, because it's 26 in the DVD and Blu-ray chart itself, number 2 in the Steelbook chart on Amazon.co.uk. This is, but then it's 295 for the Blu-ray, 327 on the DVD.
But my point is, it may have only done, like, say, 1,000 copies on pre-order to get to number 2, because Steelbooks are that niche.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it. Yeah.
And
however, sorry.
Is it out now, or when is it?
It's pre-released for coming out in the next month. I did actually also look to see if the Daleks. I did look to see if the Daleks and Colour Steelbook is still available on Amazon. It is. It's still there. It's way down the chart, but they obviously have some copies left because it's still there for sale. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So it's not selling. However, whatever you may say, it's not it's got an initial period where Doctor Who fans are saying, or the minority of Doctor Who fans say, "Oh, I'll get the steel books." They're obviously not buying the other ones. And then it falls down and plummets to where the Daleks and Colour Steelbook's going to be. Rick Storm is saying to us, I bet it will be on the Blu-ray collection box set, so everyone will inadvertently buy it again regardless.
For some reason, it just popped in my mind the memory that when Genesis of the Daleks first got its DVD release, BBC Worldwide, as it was then, taking out half-page and full-page adverts in the media press, boasting that the DVD release of this then 30-odd-year-old TV series had sold 75,000 copies on its first weekend. Do you think that's going to happen with this?
No. No, but I wouldn't be surprised. We've got it's disrespectful of RTD to suggest that young fans can't cope with longer running black and white Who, says poor Richard. Yeah. Not just him, but the whole crew, obviously. And Neville's with us saying, to be honest, I didn't dislike it. It was okay. What took me out of it in the end was the music. It never stopped. It needed to give the Doctor some quiet to do his thing. They're the bits they've edited out because the Doctor can't be seen to being quiet now. And
they kept adding bits, as you've got in your heading, George, adding Troughtonisms that weren't there, phrases and stuff, which is like, what are you doing? Really, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got Anthony Green saying to us, it was disappointing that the role of Rudolph Walker was one of the few black actors on TV back then was cut down. So much diversity. He deserves to be remembered for more than Love Thy Neighbour.
But we never
at least 3 episodes, isn't he, I think?
We never had black characters in 1960s Doctor Who. This is just a new Who thing because they're enlightened, remember? We need to remove the evidence.
Yeah. No, it's all I don't know what to say. It's all ridiculous. Thank you so much for joining us all, everybody. We have some fantastic comments for you. Mark Milford saying to us, new Who showrunners and weather forecasters, the only people who can get it 90% wrong, or 90% wrong 90% of the time and still get paid. And Michael Q. Not sure he likes it, actually. Phil Lowry is saying, Benjamin Cook blocked me on Twitter. Join the club. I can't remember why. Probably didn't kiss his ass. It probably because they're judgmental. I mean, that whole cult of BC and that whole cult, they were blocking people like this and have been since 2020, block, 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 because we dare to question them or dare to disagree with them. And as we know now, these people on the ideological left, like our beloved brand new Prime Minister, assume everybody that doesn't agree with them is on the far right, which is utter nonsense. But it's probably something to do because you like something to do about the T issue or the TQ cult issue, and they're all for that, aren't they? It's absolutely ridiculous the way they just judge. They are exactly what they preach everybody else is. As I say, we've got lots of you in the chat, and I've completely lost you all now. So it's great to see you all. So thank you for joining us. We're going to go back, if we may, guys, actually to the Doctor Who magazine, and we've got the rest of this article that says here, General Smith's Chateau, and we can now see Central Control is an incredible model. The team at Painting Practice actually built it along with the physical scale TARDIS and Sidrat, as I used to call them. So the computer modeling could be bang on the money. It was a beautiful blending of traditional model effects on the period with much more modern technology. So in that respect, it mirrors the colorization. It's something old seen in a new way, but done with respect for the original. It's really wonderful. Every member of the team has their own favourite moments from the War Games in colour, Phil says. Really? We've enlarged Gallifrey a little. We now have shots of the Time Lord Citadel. That's created by VFX artist Oliver Chenery. And the TARDIS hurtling towards Earth, a shot by Andrew Orton, complete with nesty meteors. And we have the War Chief played by Edward Brayshaw, God bless him. In my head, says Collinson, the War Chief was always the master, and we've lent into that. We've got Murray Gold and Dudley Simpson's music in there. Benjamin is also thrilled about the prototype master appearing. He might call himself the War Chief, but he is so clearly the master. Inserting a surprise appearance from the master into a 55-year-old story and not just a cameo, he's a lead villain, was irresistible. And to do it solely through music and colour was even more fun. But really, those 60s Doctor Who stories were made for colour. They weren't shot in black and white as a creative choice. The colours here are mostly accurate. The war room really was that wonderful red. The lab really was that yellow. The Sidrats were always meant to be green. And Pat Troughton's shirt was, yeah, probably white. But no, shh, it looks gorgeous in blue. And you have all the location filming in East Sussex. They're out of the confines of the studio on those hillsides and country roads, and you really want to see that in colour. So there
But
you
they've
are.
cut most of that out, haven't they?
Yeah, they did it. They absolutely did it on purpose, this whole thing about the war chief being the master, because in Phil Collinson's head, that's the way it should be.
The thing they're so clever with the Sidrat saying they're green and everything. Episode 4 or 5, Jamie says they went into that green box.
Yeah.
So it's not
It's in
surprising.
the Target novel as well, isn't it, guys? They're green in the Target novel.
Yeah.
They've not done anything original there.
No.
Nothing at all. But they're claiming it.
No.
I mean, as I said earlier, when I watched Spearhead from Space, that shot of Pertwee falling out the TARDIS to me is him regenerating. That's the point of regeneration. But I would never have the arrogance to turn around and say, and that's what happened, and you have to accept that.
Yeah.
But they do.
You can't leave things for interpretation. No, you know, it has to. What goes on in Phil Collinson's head and RTT head is canon for everybody. It's what everybody should agree is the way it should be, and it's not. It's fine for Phil Collinson to think that the war chief is the master, but I bet I put 100%. If you put a poll out on Twitter or whatever site to ask people, you know, do you think the war chief is the master? I would 100% be very confident that the majority of people will come back and say no.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's just arrogance. It's ego. It's also just blind ignorance, really, in my opinion. Keep that in your head.
I agree with you, Emilio, and you're absolutely right. But God bless you, because you're only 10. You won't realise that we've had this conversation before you were actually born. It was out years ago. It was one of those discussions around in the pub. Is the war chief the master? And you would have the discussion, but we all knew and came to the conclusion, no, he's a different character.
But there is that inconvenient little fact that in the correct 10-part version, the war chief is killed outright.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And they didn't even think, Terence and Malcolm didn't even think about adding the little golden glow in there with a little bit of music, so he might be regenerating. They pull the bloody corpse out, don't they, and get rid of it. He's killed by several of these things that even he can't regenerate from. If he has the ability to regenerate, that's a whole different Canon Fest conversation, isn't it? Because
it'd be much funnier if they had a scene where they kept shooting him. He's not dead yet. Keep going.
I know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've got more special effects to put.
Terence Dix with Barry Letts developed the Master in 1970-71. And that was literally probably less than 2 years since they'd finished filming War Games. And they could have quite easily said, so you escaped from the warlords then?
Yes.
And didn't, because
new characters starting afresh.
Or indeed, at any point when you got that throwaway reference to the previous year of Doctor Who in the unit years, you know, every time Roger Delgado's Master appeared, never once was it said, and I defeated you when you called yourself the war chief.
Yeah. Which is exactly what they would do today, wouldn't they? No, the Master was a brand new creation. The war chief is his own thing, and he should be celebrated for his own thing. I just despair with these idiots. Julianne, hello. It's all about their egos, says Julianne. They don't respect the past because they think they are more sophisticated than the original creators. Yes, I totally agree. And hello to Fast Bandit. It's nice to see you. I yearn for the time a new series opens with Paul McGann waking up and saying, I've just had the weirdest dream. We could be waiting a long time. But the more you say it, the more I'm into it. We've got Raymond Williams saying to us here, the War Games bombed. See what you did there. I really see what you did there. But I think it did. I think we might try. I know that Bedouin Godloving was trying to get the ratings for this for one of our ratings reviews. So we'll just have a look at that. And Paul Richard saying to us, Ben Cook, oh yes, one of the elite, just like Hawkins, he insulted me for saying the Doctor shouldn't be trying to get his pants off. There you go. Did he block you? I bet he did, didn't he? Yeah, because that's not progressive, is it, for you? Neville is saying, how could the war chief be the master? He was killed. Absolutely. Yeah,
not in this version, he wasn't.
The thing is, all the way through Pertwee's era, when he encounters the master, whether he's the adjudicator or Mr. Magister or anything else, the Doctor refers to him as the master. And in this story, they recognize each other, and he still refers to him as the war chief.
Yeah.
If he was the master, and that was always intended, he would have referred to him as such, and he didn't, because he's not.
But do you remember that back in the 90s, they were having some Sado geeky friends of ours were having the same conversation about the master of the land of fiction. Was it the master?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was the master of the land of fiction, a different character. You utter nonsense.
And then that one about was the master, the Doctor's brother, because of that cut-off sentence at the end of Planet of Fire.
Yeah.
What was he going to say? Oh, well, he was going to say you wouldn't do this to your own brother. And that was supposed to be
your flatmate or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, by your own car salesman. Yes. I sold you that TARDIS down the market, didn't I, Doc? Yeah. Yeah, the master. Thank you for Noodle Arm saying it's nice to hear people who are not held back by reality. You know us by now. Come on. And the Forbidden Man was saying to his master was not running the war games. Of course, he wasn't running the war games. It's absolutely ridiculous. Michael Q is also saying the Target books are canon, in my opinion. That is a whole opening another kettle of fish there. My goodness me. And Domgo is asking, why would the TARDIS have a yearometer for Earth years? Because it has in the new version.
Yeah. That did make me laugh a little bit, I must admit, but yeah.
Again, I'm not going to get at the confession dial, because when I think one of you guys actually told me about this a couple of years ago, and I looked at this and I thought, that's actually a nice piece of work. And then I dismissed it as being another fan thing. I'm glad he's got some work out of it. But for me, it was just one of these beautiful pieces of work to showcase what they can do. And now it's been put in here by Phil Collinson, who fell in love with it and wanted to show the regeneration on telly, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. For me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But that's another fan thing, isn't it? That yearometer. It's because of the fan debate of when are unit series. Yeah, and that's never going to be settled for us, because it can't be, because we've got the Pertwee run, and then years later we get Mordred Undead. So it's never going to be resolved, really.
But we also have Pyramids of Mars, where Sarah says she comes from 1980.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all bizarre, isn't it? It's all bizarre. Thank you. Shepmeister, don't even start me on Bog Fanish, please, because this just reminds me completely of all their stuff.
Well, they've already made the first master played by James Dreyfus, if you recall. So, yeah.
Good on you, James, Mr. Dreyfus.
Rather fine actor as well. But nowadays, it would be played by Nick Briggs, wouldn't it? As would all the Time Lords and the Warlord. It would all be.
Or somebody who is approved by their casting director for having the same sort of viewpoint as him. Collinson was a pain in the backside and behind the sofa, allegedly, said Noodle Arms. When was he on that?
He did the season 10 one.
Right.
Oh, you see, I wouldn't be able to watch them. The commentary on the Five Doctors was painful enough for me. You know, that hidden commentary on the I can't listen to you lot on there. And the Jamie 9526, lovely to see you. Terrence Dix brought the War Chief back in his novels. He was a part-failed regeneration with parts of his old body from the war game still present. Many legs, as I recall, and wore a cloak. And that was the thing about the New Adventures. And Terrence knew what those books could be, and he did do that, and it worked. It did work with him, I thought.
That was a good book. Krieg's writer character. It was a great book.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
But it was the War Chief. It wasn't the Master.
Yep.
And Terrence knew that. So again, I don't know, one of those things. I'm going to do this now, actually, and it's time for the Wokeometer now, everybody, for this particular episode of I don't even know what to call it. Doctor Who, the War Games in Colour. Uncle Sydney, bearing in mind I'm in a mood. Take the lid off the Wokeometer, will you? Yes, give it a really crank up and, I don't know, put some blancmange or Angel Delight in it. It's absolutely fine. It'll be fine. We are now going to see what the Wokeometer, who has been listening to our rants, who watched the episode itself, managed to get through it all, even though I didn't. And, of course, what you guys have been saying in the chat. We're going to see how wokish this particular 90-minute special. Was it a special? I don't know. Crank it up, Uncle Sydney. Let's see what it's doing. Here we go. Keep going. Yeah. What do you think of the tap? Yeah. Quite high. Don't wait, everybody. Don't wait. Yeah, I thought so. It's gone to 10, everybody. Well done. Yeah. Gone to 10. The World Commenters decided that this thing has gone to 10 over the top. I think it was. I think.
Is it broken though? Is it?
Is it broken, Sydney? It might need a little bit more fizzy pop in it, yeah, but we'll sort that out. The World Commenter will be back, of course, for our new season reviews of the next lot of rubbish that they've produced.
That will surely break it. Surely.
It would do, yeah.
Well, yeah. Derek Hart is saying to us here, the only thing was the War Games was how good it was in colour, but that was it. I didn't like the music too much of it, but it didn't make sense. Thank God I've seen the original version. I think a lot of us are saying the same thing about this, isn't it? You know, it was too much. The music was too much again, and it was too in your face, and there was too much pushed in continuity.
Yeah, but you have to be familiar with the original version to make sense of this version. If you came to it completely fresh, you just sit there and go, what the hell's going on?
As people did.
Yeah.
As they did, yeah. TARDIS Travels, there's too much reimagination on Doctor Who and not enough imagination at the moment because they don't have any, do they? As we've said in our reviews, they can't push this thing forward because they're all too much agenda-driven rather than imagination-driven. They've got no idea what to do with Doctor Who. We currently have, sadly, the wrong people looking after our beloved show. It's pretty obvious. The Jamie 9526 is saying, nice to see you guys too. Regular family viewing in this house, unlike the show. Alas. I love that word, alas. I think we should bring that back. Alas, the War Games in colour was crap. Yes, I think we'll do that.
I do have to jump off now, but I'll just kind of say kind of one final thing. Thanks for having me on, JT. I just think it just all of this, you know, kind of just reflects the kind of culture that we're in. You know, you kind of have to, you know, destroy the past. You know, we can't respect the fact that you know the past is the past, and you know that we basically. You know, people that lived in that time, right? So like in 1940, people had certain, you know, views, and they will be different to how it is today. But you don't need to go retrospectively and start trying to change the path because it doesn't fit with the modern view of things. And I think this is exactly, it's just the same kind of thing. It's like we need to go back to classic Who, change, do the changes we want to make. We can do it better. And basically, you know, screw you old fans that, you know, love the original version. We're going to do what the hell we want, suck it up, and just take it on the chin. It's just part of the. I think it's not just the people that run it; the culture that we're in and that surrounds us. So I think, unfortunately, and you will just continue to get this until either Doctor Who shut down, as Ian says, and cancelled, or if Doctor Who, for some miraculous reason, continues, it will continue because that's just until the culture changes, and we'll just continue to get this kind of stuff.
This is the year, I agree with you, but I think this is the year, 2025, that the entertainment industry is going to get that well-deserved kick up its pretentious arse. The world is changing and they don't like it, and they know it's changing and they don't like it. But we're seeing that right now, as we're speaking, it's all changing around them. Emilio, thanks for joining us tonight. Before you go, I'd like your score on the TARDIS score.
It's a shame because if I'm just doing the original War Games, I give it a 10. For this, I don't really want to give it a rating at all because it just doesn't count in my mind. But I'll give it a 1. There you go. I'll give it a 1 because I thought I'll be fair, I'll give it a 2 because the colorization I thought was good, and I'm sure there's people that put a lot of effort and love and hard work into that. So for that, I'll give it a 2 out of 10.
Thank you, Emilio. We'll be seeing you again soon. Have a great rest of your night.
See you guys.
You look after yourself.
Take care.
Take care.
There he goes, the best dressed man in London at the moment. I want to address this one that we've had in the chat as well from Simon Anthony, who's back with us on Who's Views, saying, sadly, your opinion damages the show. This is not helpful. Do please explain what you mean by that. How can our opinion damage a show that nobody is watching because the producers have already killed it and thrown it into the toilet, Simon? This is, as fans, this is our job to look at the show and criticize or praise it. And I will not sit here and lie through my teeth and praise a pile of crap. There is no way. I don't care if it's not helpful, because I'll make it clear to you, Mr. Anthony, I want this thing off the air because I find it embarrassing. He's also going on to say, I also disagree with you. A lot of it is very good. None of this was very good. None of this was very good, Simon. You're very welcome to disagree with us. You're very welcome to your opinion, but I think you are wrong. And I think you're in a minority. And the people that have damaged this show are people that will not be honest to say, that's not what we want. So don't play it with me, mister. I'll tell you. I don't know what you guys think about this.
Well, I agree with you, GT. I think there's so much badly wrong with this. Ill-advised editing, ill-advised music, so many things that are so badly wrong. This could have been so much better than it was. And having it to be done at all is pointless. I agree with that. But if they did it maybe at 2.5 hours, colorized it, had more into it, it might be quite good. But it's just been edited and butchered and filtered. It's just awful,
Yeah. I just can't stand it when I get people coming on the show like Simon does and these other people's like Into the Dark and tell us we can't have the right to criticize something that we are passionate about. I can't stand it. Simon is saying it's my fear that these negative views will get you what you want. Bloody well good. I want it off the air. I want somebody that's going to come in and do this properly in the next 5 or 10 years. I don't want this nonsense now with this ridiculous extreme left-wing ideological nonsense that's going on with all the crap pushed into it. I want it off, Simon. And it's your fear. You might have the fear that you're not going to get a new series of Doctor Who, but you tell me when you last did. You cannot compare this. You worked on these things back in the day. You worked in the BBC back in the day. You cannot possibly stand there or sit there and tell me that this is on a par with anything we got in the 70s, the 80s. Come on.
So Simon, are you saying that we should all be grateful for something that is an embarrassing travesty of a once great TV show?
It's in the same way that you're being told that you should be happy and support a much loved relative that's terminally ill and is just trying to drag their existence out in the most wretched of ways, and we should be applauding that and standing over them and going, this is great.
Yeah.
You know that quite frankly it's the most inhumane thing to do. This is something that's been much loved for over 60, well, not for over 60 years. Well, the original stuff has been much loved for over 6 decades, and it's being bastardized, it's being mocked, it's being put on with an emphasis on something that it was never about. I mean, if he likes the current series, great. Personally, I don't like seeing the lead character being an overtly gay guy that wants to get his tongue or other bits out and into other people, frankly, because that's all that Gatwa is about. And as for the War Games, we've all seen the original War Games and the absolute fantastic piece of television it is, and the miracle that they actually got to make it, because it was supposed to be 2 separate 5-parters that finished, that fell through at the last minute, and they literally wrote this on the hoof. Write it, off you go, film it. And the fact that they did that and they produced a story that culminated in those final 2 amazing episodes was just incredible. And then to see these knuckle-dragging moronic half-wits that have cut it down to nothing. Not any criticism of the people that have colorized it. That is genius. The coloring is fantastic. 10 out of 10 for me. Love it. And if it was out untouched, colorized, I'd buy it. Yeah. But what they've done to it, aside from the colorization, is obscene. And they've done it to put their image on it. And they're bloody idiots. And they should never be allowed to touch it again. But if you like that, Simon, go for it. I hope you enjoy it. Not many other people will, but minorities are in, right? So enjoy.
We've also got this from Rob as well. Rob, thank you for your comment. This is the most negative channel going. JT is insufferable. Well, thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Surely we can't be the most insufferable channel or negative channel, surely
no,
not.
I think some of the most insufferable ones are those stupid kids who think they know everything about Doctor Who and kissing the arse of RTD constantly, aren't they? And saying, oh, it's wonderful, just so that they can get into a bloody alleged premiere. That's who I think are totally insufferable. The thing you're going to get on this one, though, Rob, is honesty from people that know the show, love the show, and supported it through 15 years of it off the bloody air. If you don't like that, bog off somewhere else, quite frankly. But you're very welcome if you want to stay. But you're going to have to...
More sycophantic channels are available.
Yeah, exactly. And some of them might be more to your liking if they agree with what you're saying. But no, on this one, you're going to get honesty, and this is how we see it, and it's certainly how I see it. We've got this from Doc Martin, who's suitably chilled, saying this isn't Doctor Who. Exactly. Lee is saying to us, Doctor Who fans have brains and taste. Sadly, Doctor Who is a tasteless, brainless mess now. It's just an absolute tick boxing exercise as well. More of that coming up on headlines this Sunday, by the way. Legion of James, it's the morons accepting all the nonsense we have been getting, clapping and praising utter garbage that have enabled the destruction of the show. Well said, Legion of James. I'm going to agree with that. I mean, that's why they keep thinking that they're in the right. And they're not actually even listening to their fan base, because they told most of the fan base when Whittaker was cast, this is no longer for you, off you trot. Last year, Ncuti Gatwa came out and said, go and touch grass. How's that going for you? I can tell you, very bad overnight ratings and merchandise that is badly produced and doesn't sell anyway, therefore driving businesses who have got the license into possible dire straits financially. It's now not liked by the general public. It's a joke all the time. We've got to talk about these things, whether you like it or not, because we can't just all go blundering around going, oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, it's brilliant, it's marvelous, like a certain showrunner does, when that's a lie. That's a lie. The BBC
it was always held in the public. It was always held in the public perception with that kind of, yes, it was cheap. Yes, it was occasionally tatty, but you know what? It was kind of nice and fun, and it had that kind of the British public particularly always had a soft spot for it. That's gone now. Doctor Who will never be looked back on, because they'll only see what was last there, and they'll see that insufferable mess that Whittaker was, and this ridiculous idiot that this pervert that we've got now is, and that's all they'll remember it for, you know. And it's such a shame.
And it's like Raymond's saying here as well. Sorry, Joe. It's like Raymond's saying here. After Rogue, there was no way back. That assassinated the character of the Doctor. It was a disgusting thing to do. Yes, they turned him queer for the sake of tearing him queer. But that was an insult. It was an absolute ridiculous. It wasn't the character at all. And no, I'm going to reiterate right now, as I did several times before, I didn't even like him being allegedly heterosexual. He's an alien. So they destroyed this, and we're calling it out. And I'm very happy and proud that this is what Whose Views is doing. So thank you for that. What were you saying, George? Oh, and Dongo was saying JT for PM. I tell you, I'd sort that out straight away. Oh, you wouldn't believe what I would do straight away on day one if I was the Prime Minister of this country, and it would involve boats. Anyway, go on, George.
To illustrate what Ian was just saying, friends of mine sort of fit that profile you described of the British public there, Ian, that, you know, they would watch the programme, enjoy it on the surface level, think it was good fun. You know, at times it was a little bit rough around the edges, but, you know, that was very forgivable. And I think it was Ncuti Gatwa's first episode. After that had aired, I was with them, and they said, oh, did you watch Doctor Who the other night? And I said, no, I made the very conscious choice of not to watch it. And they looked at me and said, oh, well, we did. And I said, so what did you think of it? And they said, we stuck it for 10 minutes and we had to switch it off. It was puerile. And that was the word they used. It was puerile.
Puerile. Yeah. The only good thing about this puerile nonsense is it gives us content and allows us to express our viewpoint on it. The problem is, though, we have to watch the blooming nonsense. Lex Kane.
We got the diamond logo back.
Well, yeah, and they killed it, didn't they? They killed it. It doesn't hold the magic it did, I tell you.
That was gaslighting.
Yeah. We've got Lex joining us. Lex, thank you very much for your super chat. Awful version of War Games in colour, putting new Doctors in scenes where Time Lords picking the Doctor's new face, cutting out the Doctor's lines, talking to the Time Lords. Awful twist with the Master. Yeah, all of that doing. Watch out very soon, actually, here on the channel, because Lex is coming to join us for a chit chat. So with myself, so that's going to be quite good. So thank you for that, Lex. Really appreciate that. Who else have we got in here as well? Lee Smith saying to us, only 8 more to go. Oh, yes.
8 too many.
8, yeah, well, that's it. We've also got this from Shempmeister. This is my favourite Doctor Who Tube of Who channel. Thank you for that, Shempmeister. You all tell it like it is. Thank you all for your continued honesty. Well, that's exactly it. And the problem is, as I've learned over the last few years, since the casting of Whittaker was announced, that fateful day when the Wimbledon was on, people don't like the truth. They don't like the truth, and they started to name call and brand and call you silly things. And the world is now changing, and people are seeing through it now, especially in our country. things are now starting to emerge, aren't they, on all sorts of subjects. I've watched Doctor Who, says Eddie, since 1971, and what we're being subjected to is not Doctor Who. Totally agrees. Graham is saying, anyone who thinks this is a negative channel, check out any reviews of the classic series here. You will feel the love and affection for our beloved show. Exactly.
Thanks,
Exactly.
Graham.
Yes, so thank you for that, Graham. It's not our fault they keep churning out the complete nonsense. Don't forget, by the way, he says with a plug, spookily, from next week, you're going to get headlines every Sunday, of course, as you do, at 8 o'clock. But from next week, we're celebrating 55 years of season 7 and 55 years of the introduction of the mighty Pertwee as the equally mighty third Doctor. We've got our season 7 overview next week. The week after that, we've got our review of Spearhead from Space, of course. And the week after that, we are going to be celebrating all things Caroline John and Liz Shaw. So we've got some fantastic episodes coming up for you as we do celebrate 55 years, 55 years of season 7. How amazing. Super John is also saying the thing is that the show never talked down to its audience, unlike it does now.
Yeah.
It doesn't even know who its audience is. I mean, again, it's all about the minority, and it's all about Russell's minority, isn't it? They are the TQ cult. That's all it goes out to. The pronoun users, all that sort of stuff. That's who they wanted for Doctor Who. That's who they've got now, and it's not many of them. I've got no sympathy for them.
It should have been available to everyone.
That's what Doctor Who was, wasn't it? It should have been for everyone. And they decided not to. And they told people, go away. Go away. We don't want you.
Doctor Who always attracted people from minority groups.
Yeah.
And there was always a large proportion of Doctor Who fans that were gay or other persuasions. There always were. And it was always welcoming. There was never any of that nastiness. Ever, certainly that I saw in the places I went to and everything. And I met, I was looking at the Doctor Who books in W.H. Smith's in the mid-80s and just got talking to somebody who I am still in touch with today, one of my best friends, completely gay,
Completely gay.
Completely gay. Not
as opposed to
100%. And
doesn't he even have every other Sunday off?
I don't really know how else to say that, but he was,
completely gay, everyone.
He gave it, because it was the 80s, and he gave it about a year or so, and then he just said, by the way, I'm gay, and I was like, yeah, and so anyway, Remembrance of the Daleks, and off we went, because we would go on the phone and discuss every bloody episode at the end of when it was shown.
Happy days,
for ages. And it just made no difference. It didn't matter. And now it's the only thing that matters, and the most deviant angle of it as well. And it's so sad.
Yeah,
so sad.
Yeah.
One of the great appeals of Doctor Who was its almost universal asexuality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That if a companion was written out romantically, she held hands with somebody in episode 2 and left in episode 6 to get married, and that was as far as sexuality went.
Right.
And that complete asexuality made it so appealing for everybody, because there were no barriers to it. There deliberately weren't any barriers to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, as you said, it is just so focused on such a small percentage of people that it's become so exclusionary that it's alienated not the fan base, but the population that were behind it for decades.
And the fan base, let's be honest, it has. I mean, how many I don't know that many people. I can count 4 people from the fan base I know who will watch this. And like it, and they are people that wouldn't talk to me now because we're on 2 different political platforms now. Do you know what I mean? I'm the far right according to them, allegedly.
I mean, my own social circle, it's now viewed as one of the torchbearers for wokeness, for uber wokeness.
Absolutely.
And as you said, JT, the world is now changing in a rapid way, and it's not doing that sort of torchbearing any sort of favors.
Yeah.
No, and this is why you've got to stay with us, because season 2 is out of date, I reckon, and I can't wait to see it and look at it and come back to speak to all of you and discuss it and probably criticize it. So stand by your beds, everybody, because I reckon it's already out of date because it was filmed at the same time as season 1. It was produced at the same time. Had they had, with this War Games in Colour, the opportunity to get somebody cropping off with somebody, they would have kept that in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure. Super John is saying to us here, but that is what Moffat and RTD have done with the character in the beginning of the show. They made the Doctor sexual, in which he never was. The Doctor in the classic series was asexual. That's simply because back then they were more focused on telling good stories and having the Doctor as an alien, whereas now it's got to be soap opera Doctor.
Do you seriously think that at the end of Parting of the Ways, if Joe Grant had absorbed the entire time vortex and the Doctor had to save her at the risk of his own life, that Pertwee would have reached down and given her a good tonguing to sort of like absorb it from her? Of course he bloody wouldn't. He would
have reversed her polarity, surely.
Absolutely. He would have found a way, though, wouldn't he? By some gubbins that he'd read out and said because he had a post-it note on the wall saying it. he would have worked something out, whereas it was so sloppy. And I mean, I liked Eccleston, to be honest, but it was so sloppy. It was, oh no, she's absorbed this. That's helped us get rid of the Daleks. Now, how do we not kill her with it? I know, get your tongue in there and absorb it, and then we can get rid of it.
I know we're going off topic a little bit here, but Tom Baker, MBE, he absolutely perfectly in 5 words captured what both Doctor Who the character and Doctor Who the program's attitude to sex and sexuality should be. You're a beautiful woman. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the series should be. But oh no, this modern lot have to do it all. I just want to put this one up from Simon as well. Simon is saying, JT, your points are correct, by the way. I just want the good bits to be accepted too. And some of them have been, thanks. Well, you're very welcome, Simon. Yeah, I mean, you know, the only good bit I could see about this is the colorization. I think the colorization, as we have said throughout the show, is absolutely lovely, and the photographs that the BBC produced, of which they're coming up now, prove it.
Are these photographs part of the newly discovered footage that they found from the was it cameraman that had them, because some early episode 1 footage, not very long, maybe about a minute or so, was found, and they cleaned it up and put it into the program.
Well, I don't know, because I can't answer that, because these just come from the BBC, the official BBC socials or the website.
Right, okay.
These have come from there, so I couldn't tell you. I don't know the story about it, and Doctor Who magazine hasn't gone to any story about where these are from. But I do love the fact that they referred, quite rightly, to the original scripts or whatever information they've got at the BBC, and put them together. And
you know what? It offends me. Sorry, George, but it offends me to see something from such a wonderful era of Doctor Who that has to have that bloody Bad Wolf name attached to it. I can accept BBC Studios because they're the marketing arm now, but Bad Wolf, this has got bugger all to do with them. Nothing. Most of them weren't even stains on the parents' carpets when this was made, and yet there they are. They've got their business name on it. They've got no damn right at all.
Do the shake and vac and put the freshness back.
That's the one. I just want to show this.
More than the shake and vac for that, George, I think. Anyway.
I want to show this from Doctor Who magazine as well.
Yeah,
but it looked like a bloody model, didn't it? It looked like a model, though, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's a model, and they're bringing, again, because we're great supporters of models here and bringing the models back. We are on this show. We really, really are. So I'm glad they've done that. To me, it just doesn't look Doctor Who-y, though. It doesn't look like Doctor Who, and it just
I think it looks like a model. That's the problem, you know.
It doesn't look like
in all the episodes. In all the episodes, you never actually saw a bloody biplane or anything.
Yeah,
there was none.
As I said earlier, you know, they used the same shot of that biplane taxiing and taking off numerous times.
And there's an egg whisk aerial on top of it as well. You know that?
Yes, I saw that, and it seemed to get stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Dalek Lives Matter here saying leaving some graining would have made the scenes even more. What is that? Says Richard Brooks. Well, that apparently was the epicenter, the base of where they were running the war games from. I don't think it was ever given a name Certainly, I can't recall a name.
I mean,
That looked like a photo from a special needs school where the pupil had just made something. It was sent home to his parents to say, "Look what he's done today." Poor Timmy. You know, seriously, how he could be proud of that, I don't know. It was awful.
It's hardly Jerry Anderson, is it? Really, in that respect,
no,
being
it's not.
models, it's not that kind of thing. And
it's
I'm
not
sure
good,
if they had, if you look at Seeds of Death or something, and look at some of the model work in that, superb. So
Yeah.
it's not even in keeping with that season, is it? To be honest.
Yeah. I
Only
mean,
a model.
Raymond is saying to us here, Captain Scarlet. When I first saw it, I did think of Captain Scarlet or the Thunderbirds, but it's not actually even that good. I mean, at least they were glossy. But I mean, Paul is saying to us here, look, the model looks like a Jerry Anderson type model. Yeah. Super John is saying looks like a poor model at that. But it's what they went with, and it was just overused completely, considering that the original series didn't even need to show it.
Yeah.
Didn't need to show it because you knew where you were. The kids were able to
Work out where they are.
Yeah. What's the Who Den saying to us? The colour is wonderful, but for Who fans, Who's what's missing? But for someone who watches this once, the War Games have so much more than 90 minutes. I'm hoping, Who Den, that anybody that's watched this will go back and watch the original 10 episodes and just enjoy it. Yes, it might
put
take
them
you.
off.
I think I watched it over 3 or 4 nights originally on the VHS because I was going out at the time as well. What about you guys?
Go on, Paul.
I was going to say I saw a bootleg copy in the early, so mid '80s, and it was a really bad copy of it. First time I saw it, but I loved it. But I watched it in stages, like you did, a couple of episodes a night, because I knew it was 10 episodes long. I have watched it in one sitting since then and loved it.
Have you?
You know, but yeah.
Gosh, that's a big day.
Obviously, for toilet breaks in between cup of teas and things like that, but I did watch it in one go, you know, one day.
That's what I'm trying to get at from Shard and Knox. It's not even Blue Peter's level of model building. It reminded me of the Tracy Island that they did all those years ago.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was trying to find. Yeah. Go on then, guys. What about you two? For anybody that's new to this, that's seen it, is probably looking at the proper War Games because it's available on the iPlayer now as well. How long did it take you two?
Well, I remember being thrilled when it was announced that the War Games was getting its VHS release back in, must have been the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Because War Games Episode 1 was probably the only, or one of the very, very few archive episodes of Doctor Who I saw before the video releases started. Because way back in about 1980 or 81, the Imperial War Museum in London did a big exhibition on the First World War. And one of the things they did, they had a screening room, and one of the things they did was they screened Episode 1 of the War Games.
Wow.
And somehow I found out about this. I had an aunt and uncle that lived in London, so went down to London for a family trip, went to the Imperial War Museum, and sat and watched Episode 1 of the War Games, I think 3 times on the weekend that I was there, because they were playing the presentation in a loop. And I to this day, I think it's a fantastic episode. It's wonderful atmosphere, really sets the whole thing up. And I was so looking forward to seeing the rest of it. And as you said, JT, I remember when it was released, it was on 2 tapes. And I watched it over 2 nights, parts 1 to 5, and then 5 to 10.
Oh.
Hand on heart, sorry, 6 to 10. Hand on heart, I do think it does lag a bit in the middle. The fact that, as you said, it was written on the Who does show a bit. It does get a bit repetitive, but the characters keep it going. And then, as Ian said earlier, episodes 9 and 10 are superb. They are absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, episodes 1, 2, 9, 10 are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And then the other 6 episodes, you know, I sat through far worse things than those 6 episodes in my life. And come out the other side. So the whole thing, it is infinitely superior to this new colorized version. And I would take it every time over the cut down version.
As you can see, we've got a lot of people in the chat agreeing with us here. Everybody's remembering when they first watched it, which is wonderful. So thank you very much for all your memories of doing that. A lot of them coming in now. A lot of these coming in. Ian, do you remember watching it for the first time?
Yeah, I do. There was a golden period in the late 80s where, through various friends, I managed to get a slightly better. The original version of Spearhead I saw was very wobbly, but then saw a much better copy of Spearhead a copy of the War Games, an exceptionally good copy of Web Planet, and watched all of those. Once I'd got them, because you only got them for a couple of days and you had to give them back because they'd got them from somebody else. They were borrowed from somebody, So you often had the option of just watching them in one sitting. So you just sit down, you get a drink, you fit a catheter into a bottle, and you don't move, do you? And so yeah, late 80s. And then of course it came out on the DVD, and I already had the Target novelizations, but they re-released the Target novelizations with the same covers.
They did with the cover, yeah.
And some of those were really, really good. But
the blue spines, they're called the blue spines. Yeah.
But it was late 80s and absolutely wonderful. And as much as I love Spearhead, the preceding episode, that trial with the Time Lords and everything, so almost you're willing the Doctor to get away with Jamie and Zoe. Just as they get to the TARDIS, bang, the force field's there, and you know it's all over, and you feel it. And they cut all that out.
Yeah.
But
they cut it all out.
I have to ask though, what is that bit on Gallifrey they walk around with the dry ice and the water? What is that?
It's something from Arc of Infinity.
Okay, fair enough.
Just a reused set from inside.
It's the Citadel's, it's like town halls in the 1970s. It's the Citadel's ornamental fish pond.
Oh, exactly.
Goldfish in it, of course. Yeah.
We've got a nice
You're asking that after seeing the water fountains in Arc of Infinity. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was awful as well, wasn't it? We'll look at that one day. We've got a nice comment here from the Who Den saying, look, I went back and the original version made much more sense. It will do. It absolutely will do, because when you go back and watch the original version, as you now know, Huden, and thank you for your comment, you get to see the whole story as it's supposed to be, and it actually brings out the drama that is taken out of it now, which was originally in episode 10. You get that more because, imagine, again, I'm going to say, imagine watching that for the first time as a kid back in 1969. The Doctor's losing. This is the first time the Doctor would have lost. That must have been horrific for the kids watching then. That must have been sheer drama. He's lost, and not just to anybody, And
he didn't cry once.
Didn't
cry once.
Yes.
Hard as nails, our Doctor was then.
Sorry, George, you first.
Thank you. As Paul said earlier, Patrick Troughton is absolutely on fire in this. The scene where he calls the Time Lords, he assembles that box and sends them the report. He doesn't have any dialogue, but what he conveys by being a bloody brilliant actor is just, the impact. And they cut it. It just went.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've got a shout out, though, for Philip Maddock. I mean, I know he's been in Doctor Who a few times, but my God, he's good in this. That menace, the way you won't even acknowledge the Time Lords, but then you get the idea of the power of the Time Lords, and they didn't need glowy, bloody eyes to convey that in black and white.
Oh, no.
They just reduce him to this quivering.
In fact, it lost Trevor Martin's steely gaze he gave him. That killed it stone dead, didn't it?
I found when I was watching that when it first came out on the VHS as well, I mean, having grown up with the Target book and then to see it for real on VHS was really, but I felt that sort of shudder of this is the Time Lords and they're different in this one. They are imposing. These people are very, very, very grand. They're quite spooky because they're strong. And there's only the three of them. Do you know what I mean? And I remember seeing that and being a little bit sort of, oh, this is spooky. Because it was.
You know what? I'm surprised. I'm surprised they resisted. I'm surprised they resisted having a voiceover referring to one of those Time Lords as Goth, seen as though it was the same bloody actor.
It's the same actor. Yeah. And that's something I actually personally think it's the same guy. That is Chancellor Goth. I wouldn't push it onto anybody else. I think it is. I think that's
the
why
other Time Lord is not Trevor Martin's in the Three Doctors as well, isn't he? He's one of the he's a president,
you've got that nice stuff going out. But I actually think that is Goth in my own personal headcanon. I think that's Goth, and I think that's why he looks down on the Doctor and the Deadly Assassins. I've been with you before. Do you know what I mean? I'm not having you around, and then I'm going to get you. I love all that, but I wouldn't impress it on you guys or anybody else because that's how I've sat on that in my head for years. I've never really told anybody about it. Tim Kintz, nice to see you. As a 10-parter written specifically to fill that time on the fly, it's as good as it could possibly be. Imagine what RTD would do when told to fill a 3-part shooty story. Well, the first thing he'd do is cry, isn't he?
Yeah.
He'd be missing for one episode of the 3 probably as
Yeah.
well. So,
And then he'd go back and see what 1970s villain could I bring back. Oh, please. Jason is with us. Jason Parker. The Doctor is exiled for changing history. Please can the Time Lord send the current idiots into TV exile for changing the war games? The Marquez music sounds cheap too. Whose views gives me life? We might get that on a t-shirt. Actually, Jason, but thank you for that. Thank you very, very much. It's great to see you. So thank you for your comments. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. We are going to be coming very shortly to scores on the TARDIS doors. I want to tell you
we
this.
have another super chat, JT. Sorry, we had another super chat from Mark Greaves. Another one from Mark Greaves.
Simon Anthony's getting back to us as well, saying in 1969, the Doctor losing was a heck of a shock. That's what I mean. It must have been. He's also saying Philip Maddock, fantastic. No, we're not going to argue about that because he was always bloody
superb,
good.
yeah.
I mean, one of the most powerful things about episodes 9 and 10, this is where Patrick Troughton sells it so well, is the biggest threat the Doctor ever faced up to that point was his own people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't know it. They didn't know it was coming.
That's a superb piece of writing from Terence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke.
Exactly.
The biggest challenge he ever faced was his own people.
Yeah.
Didn't Derek Jarman take credit for that, though?
Possibly.
Very possibly. Yeah.
But where at the end of episode 9, where the Doctors run away and you hear that wind blowing, and the Warlord just says, they're coming.
Yes.
I mean, God, it's 2 words and it conveys so much.
But it didn't in this version because the whole thing was gone. The whole threat of the Time Lords, as Stephen is saying here, it was a tragedy cutting out the whole TARDIS escape sequence.
Yeah.
It diminished the Time Lord's power when they opened the TARDIS doors underwater and diminished the TARDIS team's capture. And it also diminished the fact that the Doctor is frightened. He's doing everything because he's that frightened at the beginning, of course, if I remember correctly in the War Games. He doesn't want to run. He doesn't want to go. He says, no, that's it. We've got to stop. We're staying here and we're waiting for them. It's Jamie who says, come on, man. You've got to... And then they go through all that lovely scenes, don't they?
You also, Troughton being wonderfully doctory, running around the TARDIS trying transference jump just gets ended up in an editing bin as well.
Yeah. Oh, there's lots coming up to it as well. My chats have slowed down. So, Mark, thank you very much for your super chat. It hasn't come up to me now at the moment. There's quite a lot of people watching us in the chat as well. But thank you very much. I just want to point out that this is our review of the War Games in colour. We will, of course, at some point be looking at the War Games, the proper War Games, all 10 parts of it. Not right now. Not on the list just now, but we will eventually be getting around to that. And that's when we will again, of course, refer back to this one because we will inevitably have to cross-reference the 2. But I can tell you which one is going to get more on scores on the TARDIS doors, which is where we're going to now. Yes, for you guys in the chat, it is time for you to put your scores in the TARDIS doors, your scores out of 10 for the War Games in colour. Only the War Games in colour, not the big War Games story, just this particular 90-minute thing they've put together. If you've seen it, what you're going to give it out of 10 as we play scores on the TARDIS doors. Here we go then. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'm going to start with George, your score for the War Games in colour.
Do you know, when we're going through the article in the new issue of Doctor Who magazine, everybody's saying, oh, I'm so proud of this and all the rest of it. The great film producer Peter Rogers once said, well, a dog can be proud of what it's done.
And they usually are, aren't they? That's lovely. That's lovely.
And yes, I acknowledge a huge amount of skill went into the colorization. And even though, as I said earlier, I'm not a fan of black and white material being colored full stop.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, there's a lot of skill involved there and the results look very impressive. I wish the color palette was truer to the known color photographs that exist from the story. They should have been the starting point. All the talk of how much work went into getting the colors right. And it's obvious that the color photographs weren't taken into consideration because there's some major differences. But I just look at this, and apart from the horrendous mess of the editing, the dreadful paper over the cracks jobs with the soundtrack and the score and everything else that goes with it, the tacked on, very obvious new material that's been put into it to try and get it to match in with current Doctor Who. I mean, it's the classic example of bashing a square peg into a round a round hole. I mean, what is the point? For me, it's got all the appeal of hemorrhoids. I just think, what's it for? And I'm going to give it 2 out of 10, and that's for the colorization, because, you know, hats off to all the color artists who have achieved that, but I just don't see the point of it.
Very good. Okay, Super John in the chat is saying to us, it's a shame that Jamie and Zoe had to be sent back home with all of their memories removed from their travels with the Doctor. That was sad. It is sad in the original. I don't think it was there. I don't think the impact was there in this version, because a lot of it's edited out.
As we said, Jamie and Zoe hardly appear in this version, so the impact's been lost. In fact, you know, they appear more in their final scenes where Jamie's, you know, back at Culloden, Zoe's back on the
wheel
station.
Yeah. We've also got Mark Jones saying Philip Maddock was superb as the evil character in Manhunt, as an officer. Sorensen in Brain of Mobius and in Dad's Army. I mean, Maddock was legendary, wasn't he? And he was brilliant in anything that he was given, because he was an actor. Let's face it. They don't make them like that anymore. And Yokai 63, I first watched the War Games on VHS back in 2002, one Sunday morning with a hangover. I watched it in bed, all in one sitting, and soon forgot the hangover. You would. And that's the beauty of the story, isn't it, Yokai?
Those explosions must have been horrendous with a hangover on the titles of the episode. All the bands.
Every episode.
Horrendous, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Again, to Mark, I can't see what you've given us there, but thank you very much for your super chat. We're going to go now to Third Doctor. Ian, what did you think of the War Games in colour?
If it was untouched apart from the colorization, I would have considered it. Even though they'd gone off-piste a little bit, George, I do think the general colorization job, I do accept what you're saying, because I am a purist. But for the quality of the colorization, especially over the Daleks, I would have given it 10 out of 10. But I don't see the point in coloring a single frame if this is how they were going to present it, if this is how they were going to doctor it, if this is how they were going to make it so difficult to even listen to. Because you remember, you know, we used to just record them on audio and listen to them again on audio tape. How could you have done that with this? It would have been impossible. So I would rather drink my own piss. I cannot give this anything. I'm sorry. I can't give it anything, because the work on the colorization was taken completely away by the butchering. And the regeneration at the end was great, but that pre-existed. That was there for a year or two anyway. That was a nice little piece of fan work, as opposed to this, which is fan wank, as you've said, JT. So I can't give it anything, I'm afraid. It's just made me angry.
Emilio was with us earlier, and he gave it 2 out of 10, mainly as a credit to the people who have produced the colour on this and put the time and effort into it. So again, thanks to Emilio. Paul, what are you going to give it?
Well, I was actually originally looking forward to this, thinking it might be better than the Daleks, and there
was a lot of that. We all hoped it was going to be.
And I thought they may have learnt lessons from the Daleks, and maybe perhaps not put intrusive music onto it, maybe not edited it quite so savagely. But like I said at the start, anyone who could make a 4 or 10-minute story into an hour and a half has to be a better editor than one we have doing this, because it was really badly edited, badly scored. There was so much in it that was completely wasted, so much character that we lost in this. The original superb. This is horrendous. I have to agree with Ian. I think the colorization is good, and I still like it for that.
Yes.
But the rest of it is just awfully put together, ruined a fantastic story. And I'm going to go back to watch the original soon and enjoy that more, because this is terrible, awful. Please stop doing this. Spend the money on something else.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm going to give it a 2 just for the color. So yeah,
fair enough. I also am going to go back at some point over the next few days and cleanse my palate by watching the original black and white classic, because it's a British television classic. I've said an awful lot about this today. I thought it was terrible. I thought it was atrocious. I am sitting with you guys. Please, BBC Studios, stop doing this. You have the wrong people doing this. And why do I get the feeling that we're being watched on this particular show? So I'm going to say it again. Please stop doing it. Just stop doing it and get different people to do it. If you want to make decent money, BBC Studios, then take the original stories and color them and produce them as is. So if you're going to do the War Games, do it as a 10-part serial, because that is the way you will bring original Doctor Who fans back, including a lot of those that were born of the new era that have also now gone because of the nonsense you're churning out now or allowing people to churn out for you. I'm going to agree with the guys here. I thought the colorization on this story was superb. I thought it was very good, and it seems to be getting better all the time. So everybody that worked on there, congratulations, you're doing a wonderful job. I just wish you were allowed to do it properly on all the episodes without all the edits. I know it's a lot of work, but that would be more appreciative. I'm giving this a 0. Didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, and I don't want it. So thank you very much. Let's get into the chat and see what you guys are going to say. Carwin is saying to us, we're going to kick off with Carwin. Nice to see you, Carwin. A big fat 0 for me. Troughton is my favorite doctor, and I can't go along with it. Don't care about the color. It's trash. Rick Storm, 1 out of 10, just for the colorization. Otherwise, it would be 0. Woodhouse 122, I'll give it a 3 for the colorization mainly. Derek is giving it a 3. Jason Parker is giving it minus 99999999999 infinity out of 10. Okay. St. Rosie Mead, nice to see you. 5 out of 10. Legion of James, 0. Butchered editing, unwarranted, unneeded, added modern guff, and black and white does not need color. Super John, 0. Eddie, 0. Taj Travels, 5 for the color only. SG is reminding us that Maddock did do a DVD commentary for one of his stories, did he?
Yeah, actually, if you really want, to listen to an actor in full flight, then yes, listen to the Brain of Morbius audio commentary with Philip Maddock.
Do you know, I'm going to have to go back and watch that then, because we looked at Brain of Morbius and I didn't watch any of the special features on it. So I'm going to have to go back and look, because I can't remember that at all. And I would have watched the commentary with him in it.
It's actually a really good commentary with him, Tom and Liz. But Philip Maddock is full on. And when Larry said to me...
Yes, yeah. I saw him only once at a convention and he did the exact same sort of stuff, and he was dropping in all the names. And I thought, well, if you've known them, do it. And you know what? Now I treasure all that, because we're never going to get those stories again, because they're all gone now as well. It's such a shame. We've got Stuart Busby saying to us 5 out of 10 for the color. Domgo, 2 out of 10 for the regeneration, which I did like. The rest of it was tosh. John Steed, in color I score it an uncolourful 3. Thank you very much. The Forbidden Man, 0. Doc Martin, 0. It was a travesty. The pretty colours don't save it. Fair enough. Graham, absolutely awful. I tried to watch it twice, gave up, and will never go back. It was worthless. Not interested in colorization whatsoever. 0 out of 10. BBC Studio, look at all the money you are not making just from our viewers here. 4 out of 10, says Bill Lowry, for the colorization, but 2 for the horrendous editing. So 2 out of 10. Richard Brooks is saying game over, and all those little, what do you call them? Emoji things there. Thank you for that, Richard. And Lex is saying 1 out of 10, just for Troughton's fantastic performance, but was disappointed with Flame Regeneration putting in John Pertwee. It really spoiled it for the mystery of the Doctor's first appearance in Series 7. It really did. Komodo, 1 out of 10, just for the colour effort. Everything else is shite, butchery, vandalism. Tony Crosby is giving it bugger all, and I didn't watch it. I only heard about it. Fair enough. Neville is saying it's scraped a 5 for me. Fair enough. Raymond, 3 for the colorization, but it was 10 months wasted work and I won't be buying. Julianne, 0. Paul Richards, 1 out of 10. 1 is for the colorization, but I hated losing so much material. Oh, we've got lots of you. Thank you so much. Look at this from Paul Thomas Ashworth, 0. I've not seen it, but won't be watching after hearing from this esteemed panel. Thank you so much. We've got Paul Stanterford saying there was nothing about this I liked. The War Games in color was disrespectful, not just to the fans, but to everyone who originally worked on this story. It shouldn't have been made. 0 out of 10. Shards and Knox, they've learned nothing from the shocker that was the Daleks in color. 1 out of 10 for me. 1.5, says Richard Brooks, out of 10 for the colorization artists alone. You see, the color is appreciated. That's great. What else? Simon's asking us, does anyone think they could have done a better editing job if you only had 90 minutes? I've tried. It's bloody hard. I would say no for this particular story. Then don't do it as 90 minutes.
Yeah, I can say if you know that it's 90 minutes and you're setting yourself up to fail, why do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to aim for something that's coherent and consistent and doesn't have characters like the Mexican Ricardo Villa, who played quite a key part in the last 3 or 4 episodes, well, through to episode 9, who the Doctor refers to by name when he stops him trying to escape and possibly just costs him that time that stops him getting away from the Time Lords, who just appears on that processing couch. Prior to that, he's not in it. If you can't make it coherent, don't do it. And if you're going to edit something like that, maybe look at editing a 5-parter into a 4 if you have to at all. Otherwise, just colorize a really good 4-parter. There are some available.
There was bits in as well that I forgot to mention. There's a bits where I think Lady Jennifer and the captain are discussing their memories, and they not had that conversation because it was cut out. It's bizarre, things like that.
And it's a lovely scene.
It's a lovely scene. Yeah.
I love that scene because it's just so well played, and it actually highlights the fact that these people have been kidnapped. By these aliens. And again, it brings home a slight horror element to the story. Can you imagine? What if we're all playing a game now? Do you know what I'm saying? It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Garbage, thank you for finding it. He's found Mark Groove's super chat for me. A man walks into a bar. Sorry, I've edited the rest, but it's still very funny, honestly.
That was £5 as well, which is
thank you so much, really appreciate that. What else have we got? Have we got any more? Yes, we've got Stephen Broderick. Every dog has its day, and this was a dog of production. 1 out of 10, but only for the technical people who worked on it. Nothing else, in capital letters, says Stephen Braddock. So thank you for that. Stephen Braddock is also saying to us, I love the War Games in Colour. It's a great episode of Space 1999. I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying there. Mark Milford is saying 0 for fabricating fan fiction and flipping a familiar fable into farcical fiasco, fantastically fouling up our fabulous franchise. F that foolishness. Yes, see, I managed to get all around that one. So thank you, Mark, for that one. That was brilliant.
That's not a line that Pertwee would have wanted with that list.
Can you imagine? We've got to go again. Julia. Nice to see you, Julia Chiverton. The colorization was wonderful, but 100 for butchering the story. Gosh. Woodhouse 122 is saying, I have a feeling there will be no more after this effort. I hope not.
Oh, please, I
hope not. Why waste all the money and all the time and all the talent?
As I said before, as I said before, that could have been 10 months restoring the Ambassadors of Death to its full colour glory.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I think they've done a good job on that, though, from what I've seen so far. So.
Well, we'll soon know when season 7 slides through your slot. Mr. D is saying, agree, it was awful, but glad to see them edit out Patrick Troughton's fluff on steams and schemes.
See, that doesn't bother me at all. When he fluffs.
People fluff sentences anyway, don't they? You know.
Are they going to do it with all Hartnells?
No.
They shouldn't be doing that. I think it's disrespectful again. I mean, I like to see these things. It was how television was made. I mean, it can't all be perfect like it is today. And the only reason it's perfect now is because they go back constantly.
Yeah, and it's all digital, so it's easy to edit. But I mean, people make fluffs and say things that, you know, all the time. I look at Russell T Davies. I want to say gentleman. I say wanker. It's a mistake. People do it. It happens, you know. But they should leave them in. It's all part and parcel of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's as though they think this mythical new audience they're pandering to, and I'm allegedly throwing this all out for. P.S. I don't think they are. I think they're just doing it for themselves. They're that thick. They won't understand this, and nobody's perfect. You know, nobody's perfect. It's just it grates on me. Yokai 63, 2 out of 10. A desperate attempt to make the classic series look and feel like New Who, and it failed. Yeah, totally. And I can't stand the fact they're trying to do that when the classic Who is so far superior to the. You can't even call it New Who now. It's 20 years old.
Yeah. One thing I was relieved about, and I wouldn't say it was a plus point, but at least it wasn't cropped into 16:9, and they kept the original 4:3 Academy frame.
Yeah.
And they didn't try and make it look like New Who by cropping it to 16:9.
That's a good point. It's a good, and yet they could do that. Hell, you know, if they're working on something else now for Christmas, and if it's Tomb of the Cybermen or whatever, crikey, can you imagine? They could do, couldn't they? They could try to be clever a little bit again, but let's hope they're not. We've got Mark Greaves giving it 1, and that is for Troughton. Simon Anthony is giving it 8. Thank you for that, Simon. Moriarty is saying to us, AI will do the colour touch-ups quickly and better soon enough. Leave the originals alone and let the tech deal with it when ready. Focus on the now episodes and leave the past as pristine. They haven't got any now episodes at the moment because they're all done and dusted and they're waiting to go, as it were. Derek Hart is saying 3 for the colour only. Thank you for that. Yeah, we said about this earlier, Mr. D. Couldn't believe they adopted the master theme for the War Chief. Just shows they had no clue or discipline. There was 2 because of that thing from the what's his name, the Tenant one,
Mr. Saxon. Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
The Dudley Simpson sting.
Yeah. Oh, God, ridiculous. Ark in Space 10 for the colour. Thank you so much for that one. Oh, we've got Mr. D then coming back saying 1 out of 10 for colorization only. Everything else was ruinous to my memory of the War Games. Must watch the full 10 episodes again to cleanse my mind of this dreadful TV experience. The more you guys are talking about it, the more I'm going to go off right after this show and start it because I know it's going to take me days. 0 for the editing, says Ark in Space. The editing, what editing? What editing? Oi, what editing? Remember the little chads? The little nose of the wall. Oi, what editing? Hash. You know, it's just, why employ somebody that's not got the
skill?
Do it.
Well, the guy that we know that put this together was a talentless hack.
Yeah. But I'm not leaping to this guy's defense here, but as we said before, they just set themselves up to fail because there's no way you can reduce approximately 250 minutes worth of material down to 90 minutes and keep it coherent. It just will not work.
I mean,
and whoever sat there and signed it off and said, yes, this is doable, is
I
the
wonder who
person
that was.
actually who should carry the can for the failure of this.
I wonder who would have signed that up.
I wonder.
Because allegedly signs off everything, didn't they? 2 out of 10, says Robert Payne. 4 off for the massive cut. 4 off for the inclusion of new Who actors at the end. Again, yuck. Garbage saying, my dad bought the Daleks in colour. I told him not to. He watched it and he hated it. He will not be buying the War Games. Not many people are, according to what we were looking at before. Lex is also reminding us and cheering us up by saying, looking forward to season 7 reviews of John Pertwee's first season of Doctor Who, all starting next week. We've got lots of that coming up. We can't wait for that. 55 years of season 7.
God, I'm going to have to watch Spearhead from Space again.
I know. You're going to get forced to. I watched the weekend. Fabulous. Any more when it comes to scores on the TARDIS doors in the chat? Let's have a quick look. See, it's great to see you all. Hugh Janus is in there as well. Hello, mate. How are you? Well done to BBC Studios, says Steve Braddock. It's made me want to watch the original this weekend. As I say, I'm going to go and get a cup of tea and a slice of toast and watch it straight after we finished here. And Charlie's here. Sorry, George. Charlie Silvestri's with us. Oh, Charlie, if you're going to edit a 4-hour story, there's no doubt there is admittedly some fats and fillets that can be edited out, but that would leave 3.5 hours. Maybe that would have worked, but 90 minutes? Yeah.
Even 2 hours is stretching it, isn't it, to be honest?
Wouldn't it be hilarious if the DVD sales and the iPlayer watches of the original 10-part version shot up now?
Well, if you're watching this and you're wondering about it, I can also tell you that the the DVD is currently on Amazon.co.uk for £7.99, which is a bloody bargain. Absolute bargain for a classic piece of British television in its entirety. Go and watch it, kids. Oh, those people, just go and watch it.
Buy the physical media.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even though Phil Collinson, I wanted to say that as well, as part of that Doctor Who magazine interview, has actually insisted that this is an alternative Doctor Who War Games in colour. The original will always be available and it will always be on iPlayer until the rights issue comes up, of course. Anyway. Go and get it now while it's $7.99 because it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. That's all we've got. I think coming through for the scores on the TARDIS stores. Isn't it strange? Everything this current production team touches isn't well received on this channel. From our Who viewers, from us on the panel, it's not well received. I mean, we get more zeros for anything that they do since 2023. Do you know what I mean? And certainly since 2024. it's not good, is it?
No.
No,
It's
it's
not
not
good.
at all.
And as I say in headlines on Sunday nights, stay with us throughout the year, because 2025, could this be the year the deal's broken?
Mm.
From George, from Third Doctor Ian and Paul and myself, thank you so much for joining us for this, the War Games and Colour review. Just to reiterate, we will be doing the War Games at some point, but before that, we've got Spearhead from Space to get through. George, Dr. Ian, Paul, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. And to
Thank
Amelia,
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
so much.
Yes.
I'm
Can I
glad
just-
I wasn't on my own with hating this thing, I have to say.
Yes. Can I just quickly say, if you want to enjoy an edited down version of the War Games, all I can say is go and find Malcolm Hulke's novelisation of it.
He did a good job on that, didn't
Yes.
he? All things considered?
Do you know, now you've mentioned that, yeah, because I remember, again, when the video came out, just going, what? 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 It's just amazing, isn't it? But yeah, that's a great thing to say. I love that. Yeah, always go and buy the Target books if you can find them. They are still out there, by the way, everybody. You'll go and collect them. You'll love them. But from all of us for now, we will be back 8 o'clock live on Sunday night for headlines, and of course next week, next Wednesday, 8 o'clock live for our season 7 overview. Come and join us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your super chats. And until we see you next time, ciao, everyone. Take care of yourselves. See you later.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Night, night.
Night, everyone.